Thank you for staying. Let's settle down for the AM news. And as government prepares to engage labor unions today on the 20% cost of living allowance, the leadership of the National Association of the Registered Midwives, Ghana, says the current economic situation is squeezing their numbers. The national president of the Association of Registered Midwives, Mary Ofosu, is urging the government to pay the COLA to all employees in the public sector immediately.
From us being individuals going to the market, and we know how the market is like now. When you come to the workplace, our setup, we always advocate for things that we can't work with. When you come to the workplace, midwives, we deal with human fluids, blood, and other issues. So we need to get things that we can work with. But if the economy is very hard, like we are in now, the situation that all of us know that we can't even go to the market. That is what is happening at the system that we are also dealing with. You go to some hospital facilities, you not get a glass to work with. As I said earlier on, we are dealing with human bodies, human fluids. So if you can't get gloves to work with, how are you going to attend to your client who will come to you? Last year, we accepted the 4%, this year 7%. We didn't complain. So now the government should also complain. You should also listen to us. We are not dealing with anything below 20%.
Well, on the probe on the Joy News channel, a number of labor unions expressed their concern on how difficult it was for public sector workers to keep their heads up high in these challenging times. In spite of an appeal from the president for striking teachers to return to the classrooms, it appears that call will not be heeded. Gender Desk Coordinator of NAGRAT, Rebecca Okran Abedu, explains why.
We are still on strike. We have not called off the strike. We are happy that we've been invited for a discussion on Tuesday. We are hopeful that we'll have something tangible to send to our rank and file so that we can call off the strike. We have not called off the strike. We are still on strike. We just didn't arrive at this position. You know, we went through a lot of discussions from the leadership. You know, leadership of unions start from the grassroots. So we have to go back to the same grassroots leadership before we can call it off. So we have heard His Excellency, but we need to consult our rank and file. The issue about examinations, it's not only this time. We've been writing examination anytime, any point in time, we have one examination or the other. We have made our demands clear that we expect a cushioning of about 20%. You know, inflation figures, as the official ones are giving us 28%. For me, the way I feel in my pocket is more than 28%. When you take the food items especially, MFA, we are women, and you know it's more than 28%. When you go to the market, the change in prices is more than 28%. So we expect a minimum of 20%. That's our demand, and we are hopeful that government will listen to our cry and then do the needful so that we can help the kids prepare for the examination. Same with an appeal. That's a non-starter. That's a non-starter because remember, as my colleagues rightly said, we started drumming about this long time ago, since February. We've written letters on May Day. The Secretary General of TUC spoke about it. And even afterwards, we have made attempts. We've shown a lot of goodwill over the period. And the sacrifices we have made to push government's agenda in the educational sector, I think we deserve this 20%. It's the least that we can demand for.
Well, staying on the economic tangent, our people deserve no less than economic prosperity. These are the words of President Akakpo as he opened up on how external economic shocks, including the COVID-19 and the Russo-Ukrainian war, continue to ravage our economy. African economies, as he calls for a collective effort at a global level in tackling the challenge. The president was speaking at an African Union program.
Global system for addressing economic downturns needs repair and fine-tuning so that they can be more proactive and equitable, especially for those regions of the world that continue to bear the greatest brunt of these downturns, such as Africa. In the world where conflict in one part of the world immediately disrupts economies far away from the epicenter of the conflict, and when a virus is able to wipe away decades of growth from an economy, we cannot assign responsibility for managing crises to domestic actors alone. We cannot leave small economies exposed to these vagaries of the international system to their fate, insist that they suffer the consequences alone. The international process for supporting such countries has to be fairer and more robust. I share the view of the optimists who say that this is Africa's century. However, I fear that the structural and recurrent flaws of the international economic order will rob us of our prize if we do not work harder to make an impact on its course and character. That is why we must hasten the process of continental integration. Continental unity and collective agency is the only path to building influence to push successfully for the reform of the multilateral economic and financial systems that affect our ability to respond to crises that threaten our rise as a continent. When we think of Africa before our individual countries, we're not just being Pan-Africanists, we're being true nationalists, because what makes Africa stronger will make each of our individual countries stronger and more prosperous. It is time for those of us who believe in continental integration to give enthusiastic support to continental decisions and inspire confidence and integrity in the structural organs of the African Union. Our people deserve no less, and the dream of prosperity will then be within our grasp. Distinguished participants of the Boma, I wish you fruitful deliberations, and may God bless Mother Africa and us all.
Well, researchers from the Department of the Theoretical and Applied Biology at the KNUST and the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research in Tropical Medicine have revealed in a recent study that almost a majority of hairdressing tools sampled from salons across the Kumasi metropolis are contaminated with drug-resistant germs. The scientists are concerned as this indicates a serious threat to public health. Joy News medical correspondent Dr. Netta Pasram has more in this report.
Ladies have hair needs, and these hair needs ought to be met. A quick trip to the salon is often the solution. How often do you visit the salon? And have you ever wondered what kind of germs you're likely to carry home following a visit to the salon? It's been found in various studies that hairdressing tools, like this one, harbor germs. And some of these germs are drug resistant, while others cause infection.
Hairdressing salons tools have been documented as environmental tools that harbor microorganisms, some of which can cause antibacterial resistant infections. And as at the time the study was conducted, few studies had been conducted in Ghana with regards to such infections.
The study sought to determine how much knowledge, if any, hairdressers and their clients have on the risk of picking up infection from the salon. The study revealed that 22.7% of individuals are not aware that they could either spread or acquire infection in the hairdressing salon. 97.2% of hairdressing tools sampled were contaminated with fungi and bacteria.
The tools were contaminated with bacteria such as Staph aureus, coagulase negative Staph, E. coli, Bacillus species, Micrococcus species, and Aspergillus species. And then all the bacteria were found to be resistant to the antibiotics that were used to test them. I mean, highly resistant.
Of course, based on the findings, now we can definitely say that these microorganisms are present. So education is very, very important. Secondly, and I think which should be one of the things we may want to do, is to introduce some level of sterilization of these equipments within the barbering shops and salons. Sometimes you find these sterilization equipment in there, but as to whether they are functional is another story or something else we may want to look into. So sterilization, ensuring that they are really and thoroughly sterilized, and importantly talking about these things so that people become very much aware of what is going on in our environment, I think should be very important.
Let's turn our gaze to education now, and the paramount chief of the Asibu traditional area, Okatejie Amenfi VII, is asking residents in the Ebra Asibu Kwamankese area to step in and help rebuild some of the schools that collapsed due to the recent rainstorm in the area. Over a dozen schools collapsed, and academic work had to be conducted in churches and other makeshift structures after the rainstorm. Now, though, after a joint news report, the Ministry of Local Government made efforts to intervene, the paramount chief at the District Educational Durbar indicated there was urgent need for residents to help get the structures fixed because government couldn't do it alone. There's more in this report.
The schools collapsed after a rainstorm that hit the area. The teachers were frustrated, disappointed, and called for an urgent support to fix the challenge.
We have discussed that they should find a place for us to stay, maybe raising canopies so that we can get some cardboard, plywood, so that we can use as chalkboard for now and take their time to raise the structure for us.
I'm appealing to the general public, institutions and corporate bodies that can help the children of Strafa DA to have a conducive environment to learn, so that tomorrow they will also take up the leadership mantle.
After a joint news report, the Ministry of Local Government intervened, but the situation is yet to return to normal because it will take a while for the structures to be rebuilt. At the District Educational Durbar, the capital of the district, the paramount chief of the area, Okatejie Amenfi VII, made an urgent appeal to community folk to rise up to the occasion to help fix the challenge.
Very unfortunate situation. I mean, this is a natural disaster, so we can't do anything about it. What we need to do as communities to take charge of the schools and try to rehabilitate them, because we cannot wait for the government to come. A government can't go to all the communities. We are on the ground, so we should contribute to rebuild the schools, so to speak, so that the children can have a place to study. Schools are for the communities in the first place, and this must be drummed home to everybody to understand that schools in our communities are our schools. We need to take care of them. We don't allow the schools to deteriorate and then you ask the government to come in. Of course, government has a role to play, and it has, but the communities should also take charge of community schools and try to help because after all, they are their own children, isn't it? So we need to do that to help the government to do those things.
A professor of physics at the University of Ghana, Professor Nanama Brown Kluche, indicated the district required support to enable them meet the educational outcomes. She appealed for government support.
So Abra Asibu Kwamankese has a lot of deprived, I would say, villages in the district. And it's so serious that some places, women or female teachers are not comfortable staying there when they are posted there. So we don't tend to get female teachers staying in most schools in the district. And even for male teachers, sometimes it's very difficult for them. So we have some schools that are supposed to have like 13 teachers, but they have 2 or 3 teachers manning the whole school from class 1 or KG up to JHS, and it's not good enough for the students' education. So we appeal to government to look into it, post teachers to Abra Asibu Kwamankese. We appeal to philanthropists to help us build classroom blocks.
The Educational Durbar had parents, students, the assembly, traditional authorities and others coming together to think about the educational ecosystem of the Abrase-Bukwamankasi area. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kwejenyako, Cape Coast.
Let's talk chieftaincy disputes now. And Interior Minister Ambrose Derry has urged communities in the country that have vacant skins or stools to work together, build consensus, and have a common candidate for installation. He noted that one of the major challenges, which was an affront to the country's security and development, was the numerous chieftaincy disputes. Ambrose Derry made the statement at the coronation of the chief of Pufian in the Nandom municipality of the Upper West region. Joy News Upper West regional correspondent Rafiq Salam now reports.
Permit me to address myself as Dr. Nadeb Tierubore Tanzu Benon V.
The newly enskinned chief of Pufian, known in private life as Dr. Francis Benon, came to the skin with a vast experience of public service, particularly from the Ghana Prison Service, where he retired as a Deputy Director General. The colorful ceremony, replete with the customs and tradition of the Nandom traditional area, was well attended by people from all walks of life, including paramount chiefs, queen mothers, mayors from the southern belt of the country and neighboring Burkina Faso. Now Dr. Nadeb Tierubore Tanzu Benon V takes over from Namono Tantuo, who passed on barely 9 months ago. He was enskinned by the paramount chief of the Nandom traditional area, now Professor Edmond Winyen Delechiri VIII.
This responsibility given to you, you will never fail, and you dare not fail. Your people need you, and you serve the world now time.
The newly enskinned chief reciprocated the gesture by first pledging his allegiance to him and the people of Pufian.
May I assure Pufian that as your chief, I am ready to listen to all and sundry who are development-oriented so that we chart a way forward for the well-being of families, households, and the enhancement of the status of our community at large. Likewise, troublemakers will be dealt with according to our traditional values and norms.
Interior Minister Ambrose Derry noted that chieftaincy dispute or disagreement is one of the biggest challenges faced by the security and the country's quest for development, urging communities in the country that have vacant skins or stools to work together and build consensus to come out with a common candidate for installation.
I want to encourage all traditional areas to emulate the example of Pufian, where the whole family has come together and unanimously agreed on the chief that we celebrate today.
He also urged the newly enskinned chief to partner with him to organize the people into a viable economic group in order to better their lives.
I want us to organize our people
into groups of economic activity. You work with inmates to give them capacity in investment, in wellness. And now, this is an agricultural community. You have also worked to organize units. I look forward to you working with me to make sure that we get our people in viable groups. Because it's easier to assist them when they are in groups. But each individual comes to you and wants a copy machine. That's not economical.
The London legislature expressed worry over the increasing cases of motorbike accidents in the Nandom municipality.
Let us appeal to our youth especially. The speed at which people ride motorbikes in the Nandom municipality. No helmet. And my dear wives, daughters, wear a helmet so that you might live for us to admire your beautiful hair. But if you refuse to wear a helmet and you get an accident, he loses you.
Reporting for the news, Rafik Salam, Nandom Pofion.
Well, that sums up the morning news on the AM show. But do stay with us. We have a lot more as we get into the papers. News review up next. Okie doke, thank you for staying with us for the news review time to find out what the papers are saying. And we'll also be discussing other topical matters of concern. We'll be joined shortly by media consultant Liz Hefenasari. She's on, I hear. But let me also say a very good morning to Bernice Abubedu-Lanza.
Good morning to you. How are you doing?
How do you do?
How do you do?
All right, let's bring in Liz Hefenasari now. Good morning, Liz. Hi, Liz, if you could unmute for us, please. Okay, I see you, but I can't hear you. No.
She's not muted. I just read her lips. Okay.
All right, so we'll get Liz to unmute, and then we shall get into it. I have this morning the Daily Graphic Business, Economy Times.
I've got the Daily Statesman, the Daily Guide, and the Finder newspaper. Do you want to start?
I would rather start on an interesting note. I'm sure you've seen that release from Nigeria concerning, the latest jailbreak. And it just keeps getting interesting for me because of the security situation. Today we're talking about arms proliferation in the country. Benefits, yes, but dangers inherent. We see what's happening in the United States and other parts of Europe. But I'm getting really concerned about these jailbreaks. The latest data, the 8th of July, and 443 out of the 879 inmates that escaped. So many, some of them are jihadists.
Yes, and I remember last year when there was a major jailbreak, we engaged at that time when I was hosting News Desk, a journalist from Nigeria, and also there were concerns that the next place they could get to as a safe haven was Ghana. Right. And we needed, in fact, I remember the immigration service asking that men on the ground at the borders be on high alert because there were concerns that they would skip Benin, Togo, and enter Ghana. And this is a major concern if you talk about the spillover, the likely consequences of all this, especially on us in the sub-region, in the face of the current threats of terrorism.
Exactly. So you see, it's quite a cocktail. You have a situation with small arms and its proliferation. You also have a jihadist situation. Look at the numbers here. It is believed that the jihadist group Boko Haram, and there are extensions of it, are behind the attack, which saw the use of high explosives and guns. And that is where my fear is. And this has led to 64 Boko Haram-linked inmates at the prison fleeing.
Nigeria has a major problem, and they need to deal with it because it doesn't only affect them like
it doesn't look like they're dealing with a problem. It doesn't look like they have a grip. Do you know how many of these have happened just this year alone?
Yeah, I think about 3 or 4. So if you add it to last year's, you're looking in the region of maybe 6, about 6 jailbreaks. It's not good.
It's not good for the sub-region, especially not at this time. We have the Sudanese pirates and all of that. Now we have this in the sub-region. I just pray because, I can't help it on a day where we're discussing arms and its proliferation. The 1.1 million we are talking about, that is years ago. I remember having conversations on
2016.
Right now, I shudder to think, and just before we get back to Liz, there were incentives offered to people. Deliver your arms and we'll give you XYZ. Ask how many respond.
But the problem is not about delivering the arms. The problem is where is it produced? How the people getting access? Because Benjamin, if you ask me to give some amount of money for a gun, maybe that time I need some money. I'll give you my gun, take the money, and maybe I could even take a portion of that money and get myself another gun. So brings us back to square one. You get it. And also the concern about the general security situation and people wanting to take their security into their own hands. Right. So like you said, it's a cocktail. There's so many things leading to this particular problem, and we really need to look at it.
Well, let's bring in Liz Hay from Asari. Let's find out whether we can hear from her now. Hello, Liz.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes,
better.
We can.
Much better now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okie doke.
I hope both of you are fine.
We are.
We are. We are just
too
scared about the situation in the sub-region. I don't know whether you heard what we were discussing a short while ago.
I did, and it is scary, it is frightening, and it's good that our military have been put on high alert. So talking about proliferation of arms and talking about jailbreaks, it sends a signal that security is not that up to scratch in the sub-region. And so I think that ECOWAS needs to quickly put something together, put something in place so that the citizens feel safe, because it's frightening.
Point made. Let's check out the Daily Statesman.
All right, so let's come home. And the front page of the Daily Statesman, IMF will help repair economy. President says engagement will be short-run. Appeals to teachers to return to classrooms. Alan, there is hope for economic rebound. And Baumia on technology to help Africa scale over economic crisis. And this one, Abanga innovation needed in NPP youth wing. Liz, so the IMF team is in town. Well, we've been told a couple of things about what exactly this bailout means for us. It's supposed to help us pay, deal with our balance of payment. And we're told that it won't deal with the general economic situation. There are other interventions government hopes to put in place to deal with that. There are concerns that government is going back on its agenda to push Ghana beyond aid. We've heard from Kojo Nkrumah, who says this is not aid, it's a loan. What do you make of this whole IMF situation and all the concerns that have been raised amidst the call by TUC members for, some cost of living allowance to be paid them despite all that?
I believe that we're all living in this country and we've all seen inflation go through the roof. And we've seen prices on the market skyrocket. And we've seen transportation fares go up. And you know that the salaries that people are taking is nothing to write home about. If they're asking for, excuse me, if they're asking for additional cost of living allowance, it's not out of place. Because with all the increases, we see that salaries have not been increased that much. 4% is just a drop in the bucket. And so if they're asking for more, definitely government would be on the defensive, but let's look at it from the part of the worker. When they have to pay more for food, when they have to pay more for electricity, pay more for water, pay more for transportation. And if you have a family of even 2 or 3, then your salary probably is nothing to write home about. So we need to sit down and negotiate properly. If there are other interventions that can be given them, because again, we know that some of the teachers, and I have gone around and I've seen some of them use their own money. The money that they complain is not enough. They need to use it to provide for the children that they're trying to educate or they're teaching. And so there's a lot to be done. no textbooks, the exercise books do not come that often. So there's a lot that people are complaining about when it comes to education, the education sector. But with the workers too, it's the same thing. You go to the office, there's no logistics, people are struggling to get paper to print things on, and it's a whole mess. So I think that we need to take our time as a government, as a people, to make sure that we have the proper things that we want. If you do not fix what needs to be fixed in the offices so people can work and be productive, so the hours that people are putting in they're giving the commensurate wages and salaries, people will become apathetic. And when they do that, then they won't.
Too bad. It appears we've lost Liz again, Benjamin.
It appears so, but a very important point she's making. I was just going to rope in the bit. Liz, I know you're back now, but right before you go on, I was going to rope in the bit about the midwives as well. You know, they've also put their statement out on the self-same matter. So now we have the Public Services Workers Union. I had their Deputy General Secretary here yesterday, Mr. Sampa. The teachers are in there. We now have the midwives also saying, give us cost of living allowance. And when you look at the increment when it comes to inflation, I mean, something must give. And like some have suggested, if government can't dole out money now or give certain benefits now, they must find other means. Taxes, we say we're not going to do anything about them. So only God knows how that is going to pan out. But back to you, Liz.
Yes, and when you mentioned taxes, that was where I was going. That there are too many taxes that people have to pay. And if we should mitigate that to make sure that workers are comfortable, and that's what we have to do for now. It will put a strain on government's finance because they won't be reaping in what they're expecting to reap in. But it will make the people comfortable. And when the people are more comfortable, they probably will put in more work and therefore will be more productive. So we really have to weigh and make sure that we come to a consensus that is agreeable to both government and the workers.
Talking about having money available to sort out these concerns by the workers reminds me of a suggestion Lord Mensah, Professor Lord Mensah gave. He suggested that, look, okay, if we're still going to take the e-levy, why not put that money aside and rather give it to the teachers? Because people suggested, well, we thought it was e-levy or IMF. Now we have gone to the IMF, so scrap the e-levy. The finance ministry says we're not going to scrap it. Well, there are suggestions that why not use that money you accrue to sort out the cost of living allowance for the workers. I don't know if government will consider that. But
would we find consensus on that? That's the question.
Well,
that's Professor Lord Mensah. He's one. I'm sure even among the economists, if you spoke to them, you would get so many of them telling you different things. And that tends to be the problem. In the end, government must decide. But I think where things are going, you don't have to be a crack economist. You don't have to be Peter Kwate or Professor Hank to know that we need to do something. And for me, I say this cautiously, the government statistician, yeah, fine guy, enormous brain, but I have my nibbling doubts when it comes to the percentages we've been getting in terms of inflation.
You think it's higher?
I honestly feel it's higher. When you go on the market, things you were purchasing at a certain price, when you look at the price differentials and you do your own calculations, of course, they use a pool of over 200 or so things. So there's quite a basket. But trust me, it's a whole different kettle of fish out there. All right, let's get into the Daily Graphic. Snoring over death. You should check out this photo on the front page of the Daily Graphic. So the Daily Graphic's lenses caught these 4 loading boys sleeping on bags of wheat, flour, in the bucket of a moving Kia truck on the Kaneshie Odoko Road last night. And these scenes are common, very commonplace. The Daily Graphic is wondering how many police checkpoints these vehicles go through without being apprehended. Because this is anything could happen. Driver jams on the brakes or something happens and they are gone. I see the
You see,
worst.
let me tell you, on my way to work on Sunday, there were about 6 or 7 people sitting in the back of a vehicle, a pickup, okay? And my sister shared with me that a driver at her workplace actually lost his life like that.
Yeah.
So the vehicle, went over, I think, a ramp or went to do it a pothole or something, and it threw the guy off, and then a vehicle ran over him and he died.
You know why it is even so dangerous? Because once you go out, I don't know what the scientists call it, the hippocampus or whatever, the back of your head. Once you take a jolt like that, you're going this way. You hit the back of your head, your chances of survival are. And people take the risk all the time.
But that's a good question they ask. Remember my conversation with the acting of the Road Safety Authority, that conversation I had on road safety. And he also raised the concern about enforcement. Engineer Daunting.
Right.
He raised the concern about enforcement. Liz, I know you step out every day to work, you observe what happens on our streets. It's frustrating. I mean, so you ask yourself, like the Daily Graphic is asking, how many checkpoints, how many police officers, even some of them who may not necessarily be at checkpoints, saw this and let it pass?
I really don't know what to say, because we've talked about this several times, and I think that there is a law against carrying people in the buckets of pickups, but is it being enforced? Our enforcement of our laws is very poor. And I remember once I was using a pickup and I traveled out for a funeral and I was coming back and people wanted to come in the bucket of the pickup. And I said, no, it was wrong. And that I won't take them in a pickup because I won't take them in a bucket because we're traveling over a long distance. And they called me a wicked woman, and so it becomes very dicey when it comes to that. People are stranded, they need to get somewhere, and they think that it's okay in the bucket of a pickup. But I think that if it's wrong, it's wrong. And I won't take you in a bucket of a pickup, no matter what you call me. So I think that our laws need to be enforced. And the questioning of the barriers that they've passed with policemen looking on, and that is our attitude as Ghanaians. We do not think of the fact that it is a danger to the people in the bucket. We're thinking of the driver being magnanimous in putting people in the bucket of his pickup because they need transportation, and that is the only way they can go. And like you said, somebody lost his life. I mean, hit a pothole, go over a ramp wrongly, the people are thrown out, and that is it. And like Benjamin said, even if he steps on his brake, all of a sudden, and you fall back, you knock your head and you're gone. So it's something that needs to be looked at. And I think that the police need to be educated very well to enforce the laws just as they are. That is why they are.
But Liz, do you think the problem is education? I mean, I want to believe these policemen.
A large part of it is education.
But I want to believe these policemen really know, because the situation, and for, let's say for the last 10 years, I've been using the Accra Kumasi stretch quite a lot. It's about the money. They know.
It's about the money.
They know. So they stop them sometimes. And then, once the money is given, it's like, you can go. So we're exchanging lives for 1 cedi, 2 cedi, 5 cedis.
But back to you, Liz. You talk about the fact that these people, I mean, we're all talking about maybe they don't know and all of it. But I am just, it beats me. It beats me. People are doing it all the time, like you're suggesting, Bernice, and there is no apprehension. The laws are not being enforced. But you see, it smacks of when you say sometimes people say you're not magnanimous or you're not generous. Consider bribery and corruption and what our laws say. In many institutions, if you want certain things done, you must grease palms, you must do this, you must do that. And if you don't do it, you are considered wicked. But it's the right thing to do. So if it's the right thing to do, if we develop that culture, and something interesting, wherever you go across the world where they have certain cultures that we now respect, a place like Singapore, sometimes I find it very interesting reading about such countries because they were very much like us. Some of the things we're doing now, they were doing decades ago. It took a renewal of mindset, and it took the coming generation to decide that, in fact, to have it foisted on them that this is the way we do things now. And they stuck to it. So I think we really need that paradigm shift, else we're not going anywhere. We're not. But just to move on, unless you have a chip in?
No.
Let's move on to a few stories and we're done. Budget review tomorrow. Direct IMF inflows into agric sector players urge government. And players in the agric sector have advised the government to direct part of the inflows to be secured from the IMF into the agric sector. The players said increased investment into the sector backed by solid policy measures was crucial to help stabilize the rising cost of food products in the short to medium term and support the revival of the economy. So everybody pitching, so to speak, for something.
But we've already been told what the money is going to be used for, haven't we?
Have we?
The information minister says it's supposed to help us with our balance of payments. So,
no, but we have balance of payments, of course, on the back of our wide debt, but our gully of debt, if you like. But not all of it can be pumped into that. There will be other, in fact, we're looking at the economy holistically. So there are different aspects of the...
So on the probe, for example, he said, so there was a guest 2 weeks ago, and the guest said, well, I don't even think going to IMF will solve our economic challenges.
No, it won't.
And he said, I agree with you, because what we are going to IMF for is balance of payment support. But what will deal with the other economic challenges is, having better relationship with the private sector to see how the private sector can improve, blah, blah, blah. And then also increase revenue generation to support other sectors of the economy. So, I heard this morning, PRO of the Peasant Farmers Association was speaking on Adom and also suggesting that government should invest. But I was asking myself, haven't we been told already what the money is going to be used for?
Well, the pitches will go on and the deliberations continue. I think since yesterday, since starting today, actually, the IMF will be engaging us. It still remains up in the air whether we'll even get an IMF program. That's another question. Two quick stories. Northeast region. We probably will.
Yes. And what happens is that with balance of payment, if you increase productivity, you'd be able to be getting some resource to help with your balance of payment. So if they're putting it in the agric sector, that is what a right call. Some monies can't go there. But my problem with the agric sector is that we are always producing more than necessary, and we have nothing when it comes to value added to our products from the farms. So you get the tomatoes rotting, you get the garden eggs rotting, you get the okra rotting, and people losing their monies. If we look more at agribusiness and making sure that we are adding value to our produce, then in the lean season, there'll be produce on the market because we have added value and we have stored. But if we keep just producing in bulk and leaving it to rot and not doing anything about it, we are going in a vicious cycle.
Right.
Because the farmer would not get that amount of money that he expects from his produce because half of it is getting rotten. The market woman will go and buy and then will increase because half her produce that she went to buy is rotten, but she must make a profit. So we need to look at the thing holistically and make sure that we are, from the farm gates to the market, we are mitigating the cost of the produce. And if the produce is taken off the farmer's hand when he harvests in bulk, because we're going to add value, then at least we know we are moving somewhere. But our productivity levels are very low. And if we do not produce, if we produce more than necessary by pumping into the agric sector and not doing anything to make sure that we have the same produce in the lean season, then I don't think that we are really working well.
Well, our silo systems have not worked at their utmost, especially those left to us by Nkrumah. But what can we say? Point made. Just to wrap, tied to that, there's IMF bailout talks, debt arrears, contentious topics. We'll be bringing you more of that later, but that's in the graphic business. No guarantor loans. Bernice, you remember? no guarantor loans. 12 million Ghana cedis has been released so far to students, but our students in faraway Morocco are suffering when it comes to their stipends. And I had to, sometimes we talk about the negatives. How about the positives? Northeast region welcomes infrastructural projects and, the regional reorganization and all of that. But in the Northeast region, a number of roads are springing up with bitumen surfacing, 4 factories, educational infrastructure, and improved water system. So something at least
to smile about. Exactly. Well, front page of the Daily Guide, Henry Quarte warns Ramsar encroaches. I'll revamp NPP to break the 8 and we'll bounce back soon, Alan assures. This one is a very disturbing one. 2 men arrested with human head.
Ooh.
Yeah. Let me just read a bit of that story on page 6. 2 drivers are currently in the custody of the Accra Region Police Command for allegedly having in their possession a fresh male human head. The 2 were arrested in Hobo near Amanfrom in the Ghana South municipality on Sunday evening around 8 p.m. after their vehicle was involved in an accident. Witnesses said the human head concealed in a bag inside the back seat of the vehicle was exposed after the vehicle somersaulted several times and landed in a ditch. The Amanfrom police, according to witnesses, were immediately informed, leading to the arrest of 1 person, but 1 other who managed to escape from the scene was later arrested by the police. Narrating the incident, a Daily Guide, a witness who spoke on condition of anonymity said the 2 suspect identities withheld by the police were driving a Toyota Corolla cab from Kaswa coming towards Amanfrom. The 2 men bypassed a police barrier, but again, their vehicle was not searched by the police. We know they do a lot of random searching. So, well, upon reaching the Hobo area, the eyewitnesses said the driver attempted to dodge a pothole and in the process, the vehicle somersaulted and landed in a ditch. This is very disturbing, okay? But once again,
the police missed all of it. It took a pothole to police these people.
And if you're superstitious, probably the dead person's spirit, caused something funny. But on a more serious note, this is disturbing. And I don't know if you've realized, I saw that quite a lot last year, but I'm beginning to see it again. Notices of missing persons springing up on social media. Liz, your quick comment on this particular disturbing
maybe right
one.
before Liz comes in, is it also sheer coincidence or the fact that when you look at our trajectory all the way from before 2000 till now, a lot of the time when the economy is really hard, when times get really hard, we see crimes that it's not that you don't see them, but there tends to be a spike in certain outrageous crimes. I don't know whether I'm the only one observing that from last year leading into this one, but back to you, Liz.
I agree with you, Ben. When things get very tough for a lot of people, they resort to all kinds of things that they believe will give them money or will make them wealthy. And therefore, you see crime on the increase, especially in very hard times, because people are desperate and they'll go to all lengths to make sure that they have some sustenance. And like Benny said, it's very worrying to be able to pass a police post without that check. I think that like we all know the checks are sometimes random, and with taxis, people believe that the taxi drivers now are not that much into crime like before. Before you see a taxi driver and you're suspicious, especially depending on the time of the day. And so I won't fault the police too much. Sometimes you just trust people when you see them, but it's not every day that they do thorough checks. And so this probably will pass. I'm not as superstitious as Ben is. I believe that the driver was just not careful, and therefore he fell in the pothole and then he had.
Liz, I'm not superstitious, but I'm sure in our setting, a lot of people will begin to read such meanings. But this story is captured on page 12. What you shared earlier, Ghana on high alert for Boko Haram escapees.
Right.
So. Hopefully, they will not be able to infiltrate, but looking at our porous borders.
And again, being on high alert should also include all of us. Be on the lookout. You see people, you see something, say something. You see people in your community who are not known in the community, all of a sudden they are doing certain suspicious things. Be sure to prompt the police, because next thing you know, could be wahala for all of us.
All right, so let me just finish with the finder. IMF bailout will help restore confidence in the economy. Alan is captured on other papers. President appeals to striking teachers to return to the classroom. All set for work to begin on Ofanko and Saum Dole carriageway. Teachers government meet again today to seek solution to strike over 20% COLA. And this one, SHS to receive foodstuffs latest today. I don't know if you've been following that particular development, Liz, about schools not having enough to feed school children. We know that for some portions or rations have reduced, and for others, they have breakfast without the bread complement. And, you know, these are students who need to eat well so they can learn. Some have suggested, let's go back to the system where parents were supporting with feeding at least, you know, because this has been happening over time and we don't seem to have a lasting solution to it.
And for some schools, parents are supporting with the feeding, because if your child is not getting enough and complains to you, if it was my child, I won't sit here, I'll fill the chop box. And if I have to fill the chop box 3 times in a term, I'll do so. So people are supporting the children in school. But we should put it together, because not everybody is in a situation where they can provide that kind of feeding for their children that often in providing chop boxes. And so if parents have to, especially in the privileged schools, where you know that you were paying for your child in some international school, and you were paying so much, and then all of a sudden the person moves into free SHS and you see that they're suffering. I believe that the PTAs or the PA should be up and doing. Right. I mean, parent associations, parent-teacher associations, they should be up and doing. You see that the school is struggling, the children need to be fed. You know that the parents are well-to-do, the parents of the children in the schools are well-to-do, and they can contribute to the feeding.
Right.
But there's a quick one there. We are wrapping up, but doesn't that defeat the purpose of free SHS then? So for those whose parents can't afford, and the school heads have been warned not to take any monies, you know, initially...
Yesterday, the conversation came up about some parents who, you know, in the past, I heard you mention
in
your
my
own school and how, and other prominent schools. So it's a bit...
So when they bring in the money, then they're able to cater for all the children in the dining hall, and those who are not so well to do can get it. But if it's about parents giving their own children what they want to do, then it defeats the purpose of free SHS then people are in school and they are hungry.
Exactly, and so the parent associations need to agree, and the money has to go to the school. I was thinking that free SHS had to do a lot with tuition and their books. Being in a boarding school, I believe that the parents have a role to play. Even when you're in the university and you're going to school, much as you're not paying anything, or we were not paying anything in our time, you had to take care of everything else. You know, and our parents did. So when we're talking about free, let's look more at tuition and the logistics needed for educating the individuals.
Right.
And everything else that has to do with their feeding. Because if they're in a day school, they go to school and they come home, who feeds them?
So I'll just wrap without commentary on these 2 stories in the Economy Times. Relevant. You can check out on page 6 why former Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Dufour, feels going back to the IMF is flawed, and why Seth Tekpe, a former finance minister as well, also thinks the Petroleum Fund is where we should have gone to, or built, not go to the IMF. Thoughts for you as we deliberate with the IMF as a government. But on that note, we'd like to say a big thank you to you, Liz Hafen-Asari, for joining the conversation.
I apologize because I've had flack from some of your viewers for abruptly leaving last week. That is not what happened. My electricity went off. There was nothing I could do.
Sorry about that, Liz. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us. So the show continues. We'll bring you sports shortly. Do stay with us.
Grateful you chose us, and even more grateful that you've stayed with us as we hit the big stories. Let's start with this. Locally made guns have provided jobs for many artisans in Ghana, but the fear of getting into the wrong hands or falling into the wrong hands and in the end being used for crime is also a great cause for worry. Well, this morning we have a conversation based on some statistics we know in terms of gun acquisition thus far. Now, the statistics point to the fact that over 74% of guns have been acquired in this year alone, and that is part of findings by scientists from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. In fact, these that I mentioned are locally made, guns that cannot be traced. Cast your mind to years back and you would find out that 1.1 million illegal small arms were in our country. There was a lot of talk about it. The Interior Ministry put forth a program incentivizing people to return these arms. That amounted to pretty much naught. Well, today we look at different angles to the conversation and the menace it poses, especially considering what I was talking about a short while ago, the menace of terrorist attacks across the sub-region and escapees from different countries, including the focus is Nigeria here. What does this mean for us? Well, joining us for the conversation, Dr. Paul Poku Sampene Osei. He is a consultant histoforensic pathologist at the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital. He also is a senior lecturer with the pathology department of that university. We also have joining the conversation Johnson Asante, Programs Manager of the Small Arms Commission. And as well, how fitting to have a conversation on this with Professor Kwesi Inning, Director, Academic Affairs at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Gentlemen, for those of you who are with us as of now, a very good morning to you. All right, so we'll try and get our guests on that beat. But as you can see in your short, that proliferation of arms and 75% of guns used for committing crime in Ghana are locally made, according to a latest report from the National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons. Let me bring in Mr. Johnson Asante, Programs Manager with the Small Arms Commission. You know, over time, over the decades, we've had serious problems with, dealing with armaments, dealing with small arms and all of that. But it appears it is becoming a great worry now. Paint a picture for us. Just how worrisome has the situation become?
Hello.
I can hear you, sir.
Right. Good morning to your viewers.
Great. I would just be grateful if you could speak up a little.
Is it better?
Better. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So thank you for having me. And to respond to your question directly, yes, it is worrisome to the extent that we have been coming from various angles and various dimensions, both locally and internationally. Dealing with it is a matter that is of great concern. Not only the weapon itself, and as you rightly put it, armament, which has to do with the ammunition that accompanies it. That is the major issue that along this side.
Mr. Asante, I think you may have to reposition yourself. We're really struggling to hear you now. I would suggest that maybe you reposition yourself so we can get clearer feedback from you. It is crucial, this matter we're discussing, but we can't get what you're saying. So,
is it better now?
Way better. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right.
All right. So
okay.
I would urge that you start from the top.
Right. So I'll just responding directly to your question, which is how worrisome is the situation. And I said it is very worrisome to the extent that we are dealing with it from various dimensions, which is the import and illegal entries and illegal acquisitions. And then also we are dealing with it from our own very local artisanal manufacturers
which we popularly will call the blacksmith. But lately, that is not just the end. It goes beyond the usual small arms and light weapons that, we are accustomed with. We are now dealing with other issues of improvised explosive devices and other parts and components that people can also use, to make these things, which have been used in other jurisdictions to cause terror and disturbances. And so to that extent, it is worrisome.
And you talk about explosive devices. Of course, we would all be highly concerned there because of what is happening in our sub-region. But how many of these are we seeing in the system? I mean, I want to know the level of proliferation.
Well, in terms of numbers, we are always very careful putting numbers to it. To the extent that just one of it, when it gets into the hand of the criminal, is as dangerous and make it very difficult for you to put a figure on it. If you look at the recent incidents across the globe, particularly in the United States and other places, you will notice that some of these perpetrators carry just one weapon. And then once it is a high-capacity weapon and is able to enter into a crowd, it's able to cause a lot of damage and destruction. So the numbers, yes, are important, but the level of destruction and damage it can cause, it just takes one lunatic fringe to decide that he's going to cause that. Unless in a conflict situation where you are dealing with a lot of, weight in that conflict situation, then you are interested in numbers. Now, our last baseline survey put at around 2.3 million, which is something that we've spoken about over and over. Out of that figure, we looked at it, and almost 50% of that, 1.1, are weapons that are in illegal hands. So that is it. There hasn't been a baseline survey since 2016, but this is the extent to which we are dealing with. And if you look at population increase and the situation around us, some of the issues fueling acquisition and illegal acquisition has to do with lifestyle these days. And people, because of lifestyle improvement, and others also are acquiring it as a status symbol, then it means that we probably are looking at figures way higher than what we put out in 2016.
So lifestyle issues and people, acquiring arms as a status symbol, others for security reasons. I'm going back to 2020 when we had, that piece of information from the Small Arms Commission in terms of the fact that between January and June that year, Ghana had seen a spike in terms of the increase in acquisition of guns, up to about 75%. It doesn't appear the trajectory has changed. But what is the real meaning of this? Because these arms, as we know it, are being acquired on a larger scale illegally, which then means that there is no trace. And if they are used for crime, there's no way of tracing them.
Yes, and that is where the worry is, and which is why we take the opportunity to educate people that the laws in Ghana allow you to acquire the weapon. And so if you wish to, for any reason, there are processes and procedures that you need to go through to acquire things. And so do not, go through the illegal route of having it because it also has legal consequences when something happens or when you are arrested. And one could go to jail up to 10 years for illegal acquisition and use. So it's important that people get to know that there are procedures and processes that you can go through to legally acquire the weapon. And studies have also shown that mostly people who legally acquire the weapons hardly use it in committing crimes. Right. Especially in our part of the world. And so it is the illegal ones that people use in committing crime. So we urge people who want it to go through the necessary steps and procedures in acquiring it. And that makes it easier. And then when you have it, you are confident and comfortable that, I have legally acquired the weapon. Let me also say that the fact that you acquire it legally does not mean that, you can use it anyhow, because the acquisition comes with some conditions. Recently, we saw a disturbing issue of somebody carrying a weapon during a demonstration. And for us, it is completely unacceptable. And it's against the conditions under which one can acquire the weapon. So if you went forward to get the weapon, you'll be educated and you will be told the conditions, the procedures, the time and when you can use and you can carry the weapon. And so we'd like to use this opportunity to inform people about it so that, we don't fall foul of the law.
Before I bring in Dr. Sampene Osei, let me just run by you this last bit, Mr. Asante. So you made mention of some key points. I just want you to briefly, expand on them. The first one has to do with education. Are we doing enough of it? You say that people must register their arms. A lot of us know that. But do some people, are they aware, the general citizenry, that if you purchase even a locally manufactured weapon, you must go ahead with certain processes to register these arms? That is one leg of the question that I have. And are we doing enough in terms of incentivizing the process? Because guess what? A lot of people have also told me in the past about processes of acquiring a gun, stringent processes. That also, in a way, appears to be putting people off the process. So they would rather be off the radar than get on the radar, because once they start the process, then it is known that they have a firearm. What is your quick thinking on these two angles?
Right. Thank you very much. So are we doing enough? Yes. And it is platforms like these and the opportunities like these that you give us that enable us to reach out to the general public on some of these issues, beside what we do on our own.
Right.
And that is why I take this opportunity, and I want to thank you also for the opportunity. As we have said, you need to go through the right processes. You need to go through the procedure. It's not a very difficult process. The law says you must be 18 years and above. You must be mentally sound, physically fit, for the weapon that you want to own. And then you must also have the safe and secure place that you will keep it, such that, unauthorized people will not have access to it. And then you must also be somebody without criminal record. And you must be somebody who has the means to acquire the weapon. And that is an interesting part, saying that you cannot say you are an unemployed person, but you still want the weapon. Usually, the police will take you through a process. And when you tick all these boxes, then you can acquire the weapon. So it is not a very difficult process, depending on the type. So I come to the second leg of your question, which is how laborious and difficult it is to get the weapon. It is when you want to acquire a sidearm, or what we usually will call a pistol, that is where it is slightly difficult, because that the law does not allow individual importers to bring it in here and sell. So if you want to acquire that one, you need to apply directly to the Minister of Interior for a permit. And that permit now allows you to import just that one weapon, that you want, and bring it in. And then when it comes in, you go to customs for clearance, you pay the right duties on it, and then take it to the police for the registration. So this is the process, and this is where usually it becomes a little siding, because it is only the Minister for the Interior who would give that kind of approval for you. And it is also done sparingly for some reason. So that is it. However, this is the position of the law, and if we want to look into it and see if, 1972 law has outlived its usefulness, and we need to do something about it, it's a general conversation we can ignite and have on these matters. I must admit that our gun laws, as I said earlier, are as recent as 1972. And therefore, if you want to use 1972 law in dealing with 2022 crime, you can imagine the gulf between, the two. So that is another matter and another issue that we need to tackle another day. But having said that, all in all, we all need to know that currently that is the position of the law, and there is, very little you can do about it if you want it, and if you want to be a law-abiding citizen.
Let me now bring in Dr. Sampene, who also joins the conversation on this matter. Doc, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning, my brother, and how are you?
I am doing well. I hope you are too.
I'm cool.
Right. So we have the benefit of this latest research piece put together by you together with others, and it also points to a known fact: 2.3 million firearms in the hands of different people in different parts of our country, only about 1.1 to 1.2 million of them registered. And then we also have the other issue of 90%, at least per your study, of violent deaths occurring outside the confines of conflict. That paints a certain picture. A lot of these arms are getting into unknown hands. And these unknown hands are using these munitions without the system even being able to trace them because they are not properly registered. What can you say on the back of this, and what else does this research piece evince on this matter?
Thank you very much, my brother, and thank you for the opportunity. Once again, this study was done retrospectively. I took the study from 2006 to 2008 to 2013, which was, of course, a 6-year retrospective study of gunshot fatalities in Ghana. And actually, before we started the program, or we started a study, we took into consideration the various highlights of gunshot fatalities, some of which we saw that most of these gunshot fatalities were from locally manufactured, or what we call country manufactured firearms or arms. In fact, they form about 90% of the cases that we actually survived. It was actually reviewed from the Ghana Police Service, where, in fact, from the ballistic unit of the Ghana Police Service. We reviewed that, and we realized that that is the case here. And so most of them, looking at the circumstances surrounding the gunshots and these fatalities, we realized that about 48.8%, which about 48.9% were actually from armed robbery. Almost 15 or 16% came from homicide, and then 10% from hunting, and then the rest, 8.9% accidental discharge, and that of social unrest. And then 7.7% were unsecured guns, that is the guns that were not secured in terms of disabling the gun when it's no more in use or by the owners. So naturally, that is what actually is happening in Ghana. And I think my brother, I was listening to him at the background, and I realized that actually he also confirmed or reiterated my point that the upsurge in firearm proliferation in Ghana is something that we need to be worried about.
Now, on the back of this study, what really does, these figures you're putting out, what then do they point to in respect of the proliferation of small arms, first of all, because we know about the challenges in terms of, reining them in. There have been programs in the past to get people to, register their arms. That has fallen on deaf ears, and it appears the proliferation is not stopping. What does this go to show further in terms of proliferation, in terms of use of such arms?
Like he rightly said, my brother who was actually speaking with you initially, like he rightly pointed out, in fact, if you are taking into consideration globally, with the exception of Brazil and then probably US, which has the highest in terms of numbers, in fact, annual number of deaths as far as gun arms are concerned, or firearms are concerned.
Right.
What is happening in Ghana? Ghana, we are almost second to Nigeria, where these type of deaths is also quite rampant. So it's becoming more and more dangerous in Ghana that firearms are easily finding their way into wrong arms. People who are, in fact, basically, it points to the fact that the unemployment situation in Ghana is luring a lot of people into getting money through the usage of these firearms, and that is where the danger is. And if you look at the ages that were involved, most of them were, in fact, the mean age was around 34 years.
Right.
And you can imagine how dangerous it is if this thing continues over a long period of time.
So then again, we have the issue to do with the ages, and I'm just trying to find that portion, because like you mentioned, the mean ages appear to be falling. Okay, so there you have it, age distribution of gunshot injured victims. You would see that there are those aged between 11 and 12, all the way to upwards of 60, and the perpetrators as well, leaving a lot really to be desired. And you say, as per the results from the analysis, the mean and median age of the gunshot victims stood at 34 years, 156 days. These are people in the very, at the very height of youth and having their lives snuffed out in some instances. So that really is a big problem.
Sure. And you see, there is a new paper that I'm trying to put up. In fact, those who were involved in this type of armed robbery, for instance, and they themselves got shot by the police, maybe in the exchange of arms or whatever, exchange of fire. What actually we are trying to put up is that we want to look at their ages. And those that you can see, as far as their ages, they are also within the same useful bracket, within 18 to 25, maximum 30 years, 33 years, and they are holding these arms. And you can imagine that the way the unemployment system in Ghana, which of course is not an excuse anyway, but people feel that the best way to get money, as far as some of these things are concerned, is to probably pick arms and start, killing others, trying to snatch their properties and so on and so forth. And that has actually shot the armed robbery incidents to about 49%, if my calculation, in fact, is 48.9% actually. So you can imagine getting to 50% of these firearms find themselves in armed robbery, hands. So it's very dangerous. And these young guys are the ones who are actually involving themselves into it, as well as those who are getting shot are also within the youth bracket, and it's very dangerous.
I'll be coming back to you, Doc, on further details from this retrospective study, if you like. But let me also go to Johnson Asante of the Small Arms Commission. So when you say, this was 2 years ago when you were talking about the fact that many more people were acquiring arms on the back of, threats of insecurity or feelings of insecurity. Has that escalated now, especially considering what is happening in the sub-region?
Well, thank you very much. And let me say good morning to Dr. Sampene and the team for the work that they have done. Getting data in Africa, in our part of the world, is usually very difficult. And so to analyze this data, they've done extremely well. And thank you for coming.
So when you speak of analyzing data, are you referring to the data emanating from Dr. Sampene Osei and his team, or data linked to the question I posed?
No, data which Dr. Sampene and his team have analyzed,
right.
Which I will come to later.
Right.
So to respond to your question, as I said earlier, it doesn't look like we are having a downward trend looking at what is happening around us, in the sub-region, particularly in the Sahel. It makes it even more imperative for us to redouble our efforts in dealing with the issues of illegal, flow of arms, from the Sahel in particular into our parts of the world. Recent concern, even from the World Bank, is another agencies, is that the Gulf of Guinea state seems to be a target, from the Sahel, because they feel that moving down to the Gulf of Guinea state will grant them access to badly needed resources to enable them ply their trade. And so at the back of this knowledge, you cannot say that, you need to relax. We are confident we can deal with it, but we cannot say that it is going down.
You're confident you can deal with it based on what?
Well, based on the information we have, based on the collaboration that we have with the security agencies, based on the activities and programs and projects that we are putting in place, are all helping deal with it. Fortunately for us, in Ghana, we don't deal with it as a standalone issue. It is dealt with by various agencies playing their role, in this matter. So To that extent, we are very confident we can deal with it.
We're seeing more and more information over the years of attempts to, rope in arms that ought not to be out there, registered illegally. We've seen incidents in 2nd D by your commission and in other places. What would you say that has yielded, especially in a turbulent year like this, where a lot has been happening in the sub-region, where we've had a lot of terrorist activity, we've had a lot of different happenings. How successful would you say that drive has been as far as Ghana is concerned?
Yes. So
has there been any move this year, for example, in 2022? Has there been any move by the Small Arms Commission on that tangent?
Oh, yes. So that is why I said initially I'll come back to Dr. Sampene's and his team's research findings. And also because they dealt with historical data, which speaks to issues that has to do with data, extending 10 years back. Some of their results findings doesn't seem to dovetail into what we are doing well because of the nature of the data they have dealt with. Now, I'm responding to your question because of the things we are seeing and what we are doing. Are we doing? What are we seeing? We are seeing more foreign weapons and foreign inflows. We are seeing illegal acquisition, and these acquisitions are not, locally made weapons that people are acquiring, over the last few years. People have developed a penchant for foreign-made ones and foreign-made weapons. And so to deal with it, what we have done now is to put up, some posts at the borders, specifically Lubu, Paga, and also in Tema. As we speak, some of my colleagues and my executive secretary are in Lubu to look at what has been put there and what measures, we can deploy in dealing with the cross-border flows of illegal weapons. From there, they will be coming to Paga also, which, the project is almost complete. And then we will start the project in Tema. And then in the coming years, the next phase, we look at some other places like Sampa or Sekwejokrom, and also places like Akanu and those areas. So we are dealing with it based on the information we have and based on current information. We see more illegal inflows from countries around us and also from Europe and America. Now, you would notice that recently, I think last year or so, Customs intercepted some 343 pistols at the Kotoka at the Tema port. Now, why would anybody bring in over 300, sidearms? These are weapons that, here we call them gas pistols. And because they are non-lethal, and Europe and other places where they come from, they are not controlled. So if you are acquiring it, nobody really cares. But once they get into our jurisdiction, our blacksmith has the capacity, to modify these weapons to now begin to fire live ammunition instead of the blank ones that they are normally made to fire, or the gas, pistols that they are to make just a sound. So these are new information and new phenomenon that we seem to be dealing with, either than just the locally manufactured, ones that.
Okay. Let me sneak in this bit before I bring in security analyst Adib Sani. Adib, thank you for joining the conversation. Just hold for me. Let me stay with you, Mr. Asante, just briefly. So we know of what is happening across the world, what it means, the proliferation of arms, at least in other jurisdictions legally, like in the US. We see what is happening there, even in a system where all of these arms, by and large, are registered. But first of all, do we have limits in terms of how many arms people can own in Ghana? Like we know in South Africa, there's a cap of 5. And secondly, I'd like to find out, does the Small Arms Commission have a database where you can track registered armaments in the system?
Thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, we are fighting proliferation in 2022 with 1972 laws. The laws we have
currently... So the law in itself is not fit for purpose?
No. Yes. So, and that is where the major of the problem really also comes from. We do not, I'm afraid, have the limit to the number of weapons an individual can acquire based on the current law. And that is, another area of concern. So as it stands now, an individual probably can build an armory and he would not have infringed on the law.
So an individual could own a bazooka, own all kinds of armaments, and that would still be legal?
No, not all kinds, because the good thing, however, in that law is that you are not allowed to own any automatic weapons or any military-grade, weapon. We have what we call the civil category weapons, from pump action to the sidearms down to the single barrel and double barrel hunting guns. But for automatic and semi-automatic weapons, the law frowns on that. However, it does not put a limit to the number that the individual, can acquire and possess, which means that you can register a weapon at the Nima police station, go to the ministry police station and register, go to Bunkrugu and register, go to Kintampo and register, come to Techiman and register. And by that, the individual can safely build an armory and he wouldn't have infringed on the law, and which is why it's important that the law is re-examined. In terms of database, the original data of acquisition is kept by the Ghana Police Service, and that is where the registration is done. And Ghana Police keep the data when it comes to weapon acquisition. However, if we want access to it, it is not a difficult thing to do because they know this is our way. Now, historically, you will realize that the Ghana Police Service used to register vehicles. They used to, regulate alcohol and tobacco in this country until some organizations were set up and those functions hived off from the police. As we speak now, the weapon registration system is still based with the Ghana Police Service. And that is what it is until the processes are done, and then it is also hived off. But as it says, it still stay with the police, and they keep the data.
Let me bring in Adib Sani into the conversation, Executive Council member, Coalition of NGOs Against Arms Proliferation. Now, Adib, you already are aware of this situation. Over 2 million firearms in the country, and over 1 million of them in the hands of people who haven't registered these arms. Now, there are different sides to the conversation. Some will tell you that, look, it is a source of revenue, especially for the teeming unemployed youth. It's interesting because if you look at just this morning in terms of our Living Standard series and all of that, some of the data coming to us shows that youth unemployment between 2017 and, say, 2020 has sort of doubled from over 9%, and we're looking at over 17%. These are the figures, and now it is getting even worse. You cast your mind back to the fighting between the people of Alavanyo and Nkonya, and you would find out that there's a lot of production and proliferation of arms in that environment. That has largely been contained, but from the economic aspect, people there will tell you that we use this to make a living. On the other hand, we are not getting a lot of these arms registered, and it's becoming a big issue. What is your initial take on this matter as far as the economic angle is concerned, and then the security angle as well?
Well, first of all, a very good morning to yourself, to Mr. Johnson, who I work very close with. I'm part of the team that is working with the Small Arms Commission to put together a new legislative regime to better control arms in the country. And work is in progress, and a lot of successes have been chalked already. And I'm hoping that going forward, we will have the political goodwill to be able to advance it to better improve the security of the state. And to the figures, as a matter of fact, the over 2 billion figure you mentioned is according to the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center 2014 baseline survey. So you can imagine about 8 years down the line, how many more of these weapons we could have in the system. And you also talked about the fact that about 1.25 million are registered. But the question is, how many of these 1.25 million renew their licenses? As at the end of 2020, according to the Small Arms Commission, only about 45,000 of the 1.25 million gun owners who have duly registered it renewed their licenses. So in the midst of all of these registered guns, we still have quite a considerable number of them who have not renewed their licenses. And talking about the economic bit of it, we have the artisanal gun manufacturers. Like you mentioned, as a matter of fact, at one point, I spoke with a contact of mine there who told me that she can actually go into the kitchen and instead of cooking rice, she would cook me a gun. And that it is knowledge that has been transferred from their grandfathers to them, okay? And they manufacture this as a means of survival. And I think this is where the problem is, because for years on end, governments have pretended that we don't have a fledgling local gun manufacturing industry in the country. As a matter of fact, beyond Alavanyo, Nkonya, Kumasi, Boku, Tamale, and so many other parts of the country, we have these people who are able to manufacture these weapons. And it's not such a complex mechanism. It's about you getting the hammer right to be able to go hit the primer of the bullet, and you are able to have a gun in your hand, okay? And it's quite common. So if we fail to deal with the fundamental issues and only engage ourselves in surgical operations, we've heard that there are some individuals manufacturing these weapons, let's go and arrest them. Let's go and without dealing with the fundamental issues, the economic issues, then we might just, be on a wild goose chase, merry-go-round. And that is really disturbing because according to the Ministry of Interior, about 90% of guns retrieved at crime scenes are locally manufactured. So that should tell us the seriousness of the issue. And then when it comes to the registration process, at the point I was at the CID headquarters. And,
before we get into the registration process, pardon my coming in, we're talking about the economic angle. I just want us to stay there briefly because you say that we're almost pretending as though this didn't exist, but it is in existence, like you've mentioned, in parts of the Ashanti region, Kumasi. You can talk about Boku, which is, on fire today, and the fire has been doused tomorrow and back on fire again the next day. We also have Alavanyo and Nkonya and everything that goes on there. But you look at other jurisdictions. In the United States, and I mean the West, basically, they have gun manufacturing, in fact, armament manufacturing entities. And interestingly, they are thriving. So is it our failure then to monetize, an industry that we could even get returns from as a country? So here's what I mean. You get those who are involved in this local or artisanal manufacture of weapons. You put them together, you hone their talents, but they're producing for the state. And the state can use these for its armory and even sell some of it. Is that too far-fetched?
The best regime is no arms at all. In the US, as at 2018, there were about 390 million weapons in the hands of civilians, more than the number of human beings living in the US. What did we witness in 2020? Over 45,000 Americans died as a result of gun-inflicted wounds. In Japan, which has one of the strongest, one of the tightest gun controls in the world, last year, only a single human being died as a result of gun violence. And a year before, only 4 people, and it was big news. How come 4 people died in the whole of Japan as a result of gun, inflicted wounds.
So you're basically saying
but where we have gotten to, Akakpo, where we have gotten to, we need to take it as it is. The reality is, it is fledgling, and we cannot continue pretending about it. We need to put them together. And I've always indicated this. It is time for us to regularize, so we'll be able to regulate the activities of these artisanal manufacturers. But like I indicated, we keep pretending about it. Even if you hold a locally manufactured gun, I'm not sure you will be able to register it, because it comes, it doesn't come with a certain mechanism like the foreign-made ones. For example,
registration, numbers and all of that. It doesn't usually come with those details.
Yeah, and also for some of them, apart from the numbering and all that, it doesn't come with that marking in the barrel. When you fire a projectile from a gun, they are able to perform what they call ballistic tests, and you'll be able to identify using the shell casings which gun fired this. But with the locally made ones, they are not able to do that. As a result, it's a bit of a challenge for law enforcement to license these weapons. A friend of mine put side by side a locally manufactured pistol and a foreign-made one, and asked me to identify which one is local, which one is foreign. Believe it or not, I couldn't. So that should tell you the level of sophistication. So if you are able to bring them together, regularize and regulate, there would even be the police on our behalf, and keep an eye on any other group of individuals who might, be engaged in such illegalities.
But then we're making the same point, Adib Sani. So basically, we must. The industry is thriving. It is in our faces, and if we pretend it's not there, it will only come back to bite us. So we must put them together, ensure that they are registered, and then what? And then what next?
And then we'll be able to regulate. We'll be able to get them to at least have serial numbers. We'll be able to get them to sell it to those that have been given permits by the Ministry of Interior. So we don't get them out in the streets, on the black market, sold to criminal elements. Also, most importantly, we don't get any other person, who decides to wake up in the morning and, is manufacturing guns. We make them become watchdogs on our behalf. And trust me, if we empower the Small Arms Commission, they will be able to do a great work going forward. I've come to the realization that it looks almost like they've been sidelined so far as gun acquisition processes is concerned, the registration, the keeping the register, etc. When you even look at the Arms and Ammunition Act 1972, in one of the sections, it says the IGP is supposed to have a central register of all weapons. So if we have that register, Akakpo, how come we are not able to follow up on those that have, reneged in renewing their licenses? So the Small Arms Commission really has a very important role to play in that regard. And I'm hoping that we wake up from our deep slumber to the reality, to the fact that it is fledgling and we need to do something about it.
Are you suggesting that the Ghana Police Service has also, been sleeping on its duties in terms of this regulatory role that it has? Because I was engaging Mr. Asante of the Small Arms Commission, and he also made mention of the fact that when I asked him about whether they had access to a database, he pointed to the fact that they don't necessarily need a database and that the Ghana Police Service has it. So as and when there is the need for any such information, they will go to the Ghana Police Service. So it then raises questions. If some of these things are happening and people are not renewing their licenses and all of that, how can that even happen? Do you have an idea, Adib, or should I just throw that to Mr. Asante?
No, I think under the scheme of things, he is right to say they might not necessarily need it. But they do need it, especially going forward. The Small Arms Commission would have to be capacitated enough to also be able to perform some regulatory functions. For example, only 45,000 licensed gun owners renewed their licenses out of the about 1.25 million as at the close of 2020. So if the police did its job right, considering the fact that they have the database, they have the pictures, their addresses, their phone numbers, their next of kin, and all that, why don't they follow up and find out why haven't you come to renew your license? Nothing of that nature is happening. So it's quite obvious that the police is not performing the way it should. That is why the Small Arms Commission would have to come in to complement that effort.
All right. We've been talking about the Small Arms Commission. Of course, they also deal with light weapons and all of that. Let me bring in Mr. Asante. Are there any responses you have to what Mr. Adib Sani is saying? He disagrees slightly when it comes to the bit about having a central database. But now that Adib talks about engagements with you in working on the 1970s era legislation that we have, can you give a pointer to whether we're going to see caps now when it comes to at least what you are working on together with Adib and other teams when it comes to the number of arms people can have and serialization and all of that? Can you give us some detail on that?
Thank you very much, Akakpo. And Adib, good morning. Thank you for appearing and thank you for the advocacy. I don't know whether I implied in my rendition that we didn't need the data.
I didn't suggest that you had said you didn't need it. I don't know whether Adib suggested that as well. All I mentioned was that you said you didn't have a direct, I don't know, necessity
we don't
for
have
it
it
because
directly,
you had
but
it.
the police keep it and we can have access to it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes. But so let me put something also right that in terms of Adib mentioned regulator, and then you also alluded to the police as not regulating. In fact, the job of the police is not regulation. The duty of the police is enforcement. And so that is where the lacuna is. Now, what is best practice globally?
Mr. Asante, pardon me, I missed a little bit of what you said. So you mentioned that the Ghana Police Service is not the regulator. I get that. So
yes.
They merely keep a database. That is it, right?
Yes, they keep a database. But I'm saying that in this broader scheme of things, police service are not regulators. They are enforcers.
Right.
But so as it is now, they are performing some duty of a regulator, which is actually not supposed to be their duty. Right. Which is why I also cited the example.
Which entity is supposed to do the regulation? Interior Ministry, the Small Arms Commission?
No. As it is now, the Small Arms Commission, which is set up as a single purpose vehicle to deal with matters of small arms and light weapons, would have to be transformed into a regulator to be able to do that. And that is where the reform of the law is important. Now, I cited the example of the police registering vehicles, after independence, the post-independent era. But you see that we now have a DVLA, which is the regulator in that space. When you come to minerals, mines, you have the Minerals Commission, which is the regulator, and the ministry plays the policy role, and you have the police as an enforcer of all the laws. And so this is where we are with the small arms issue. A cell resides with the police, trying to play the regulatory role, which really, in the scheme of things, should not be the job of the police.
Let me ask you this pointed question. Is the police successfully carrying out this role? So they are acting. It is not their role, but they are trying to give a semblance of that role. How do you feel the Ghana Police Service has fared? And is there going to be any legislation moving forward on this specific angle so that we can have a regulator, known regulator, to stem the tide of these happenings per the discussions you're having on moving away from the current legislation we have?
Well, it is part of the challenge that we see, which has to do with the issue of renewal, for example. And so when it comes to the police, they are enforcers. So if you don't renew your license, we'll come at you, or when it's used in commission of crime, then you are arrested and the law will take its course. but the regulator will put in place measures to ensure that the people who register their weapons have come back to renew it, or we have ways of reminding and getting them to renew. So that is, but you cannot blame the police for this. You know, they have done this, you know, we burden them with a lot of duties and responsibilities that other agencies are supposed to be playing, which is why it's important that the law is reviewed and, you know, a proper regulator put in place. It comes back to the question of manufacturing, and that is also another issue. Now, you are making a very beautiful suggestion of putting people together, getting them to manufacture, and who regulates. That is where the issue is. Now, if we do not put in the proper regulatory mechanism and framework, what we'll end up doing is that we'll be playing catch-up when we get a proper arms manufacturing industry set up. Forget even about the local manufacturing industry. If you look at the rate at which our economy is going within Africa and within the sub-region, where everybody wants to come to Ghana and invest, you know, vis-a-vis our other countries, it won't be long where you have others coming to set up, you know, manufacturing plants. And when they apply, I bet you me they probably will get the permission and the license to do it. And we will not have a regulator in place. And then we will begin to play catch up. In recent times, I know a country that, you know, discovered oil just like Ghana did. And then they allow the oil companies, the big ones, to start exploration before they put in the regulatory measures. And now the oil companies are dictating what they should do. If we do not take the time to put in place the regulatory framework and we allow the multinationals to come and set up to manufacture, they will dictate to us how we should regulate them. And that is where the challenge is going to come.
That could be another resource curse that we have to get past. But let me bring in Dr. Sampene Osei, who also undertook this study with his team. Doc, I know you have some responses to some of the points that have been made. Let's start off from there before we go back to your research piece.
Thank you once again, Mr. Akakpo. I think Mr. Asante Chum made a point by saying that the data analysis becomes a problem when it comes to arms, firearms for that matter. I have a little bit of worry in that regard because, one, if he had had the opportunity probably to read some of the research people have done in terms of these firearms and its fatality, you would have realized that people do it bit and pieces in terms of the country, in terms of the regions. Ours was on the northern part of Ghana, which of course, we realized that it has not been, people have not done enough work in that regard. So we decided to go into that aspect of Ghana, which is the northern aspect of Ghana or the northern sector of Ghana, where we came out with the various data that we had in hand. So, Mr. Atib Asani, is it Atib or Adib Sani?
Adib Sani.
Adib Sani also reiterated the fact that about 90% of these arms are locally manufactured. In fact, Mr. Asante, in a way, also accepted the fact that some of these arms, like he rightly said, probably might have been imported, but they are modified locally to be able to suit the purpose for which these people want to use the arms for. So it comes to the point that the data is somehow credible, and I want him to also accept it, and that probably use it. He told us that he doesn't need the data, the police keep those data. And so they actually, when they needed those data, they come for them and then use it. I believe that, I mean, in as much as we are all trying to live safe in Ghana, everything like these things must be taken serious and probably work with it and then make sure that we attain the peace that Mr. Adib said, that in fact the best regime is no arms at all, because arms, whether they are manufactured locally or, I mean, externally, when they get themselves into wrong hands, nobody is safe. And then there's another issue of renewal of license. I'm talking about that people have renewed their licenses either, and the arms are not used by themselves. They renew their arms probably and hand it over to some people to be used for them, or some people to be guarding their homes and all those things. So please, the renewal alone is not panacea. to some of these things. So we have to be very careful as far as this licensing is concerned. The regulations and then the monetizations and then what do we call it? That of the enforcers and all those men. They are very important, we do, but my brothers and sisters, my brother, Dr. Asante, and then Atip, we should be very careful with regard to the license. We need to be very serious as to how these arms and where and who are those people using the arms. Like I said, in our new research that we are doing, we are looking at the situation where young boys, 18 years, some 16 years, up to 30 years, holding these arms, and they actually, if you look at them, sometimes you ask them what, in fact, those who didn't die, and probably you ask them what actually they were using their arms for, you realize that some of them don't have any tangible reason to be. So please, we need to be careful in regard to the data that are actually being churned out from the various researchers, and then we make do, and then make sure that we use them and use them well.
I want us to wrap on the conversation, but it's also interesting per the results that your team comes up with, Dr. Osei. I'm just looking at the significant number of fatalities due to robbery, for example, 48.9%. So if we want to monetize this industry, that is another angle in there. We also see from robbery followed by homicides with 15.6%, among others. Whether this is a burden we would like to bear in terms of the arms proliferation, even legally, is a different matter altogether. But to sum up the conversation, gentlemen, I'm going to give you a minute and a half each. You have all spoken about some of the things we should do. Succinctly, what should we be looking at? In very simple terms, what should we be looking at? And I also want you to react to that recent jailbreak in Abuja, the 6th of July, the 8th of July. That is the statement, but the actual jailbreak happening on the 6th of July, a Wednesday, with so many prisoners, hundreds of them escaping, 64 jihadists also escaping. What does this mean for the conversation we're having? I'll start with you, Dr. Osei. Hello, Doc. Right.
What is happening is that these arms, like the three of us seem to agree that it is very dangerous in the society where arms seem to find their way in wrong hands and are used, for rank purposes. So I would think that the regulators, if national small arm and the Ammunition Commission is the one responsible, they have to be up and doing. In fact, from time to time, probably if it is possible, they need to also engage the stakeholders such as researchers, the police, the security agencies, and all those things, so that we'll be able to find a lasting solution as to where they are coming from and how they get into the system. Now they are so sophisticated that these days you realize, I don't know whether you saw it on the news or somewhere, where armed robbers, no, not armed robbers actually, people who were interested in importing arms into the country use empty petrol tankers, which are crossing to probably our borders to pick fuel, loaded their arms into these petrol tanks, probably upon tip-off it was seen. Otherwise, these things would have come into the system, and could imagine what they could have used it for. So naturally, I think that we need to review the law that regulates it. That is NCRD 9, which is 1972 enacted law that seeks to regulate arms in Ghana. We need to change it. We can't use 1972 situation,
right?
Which is 50 years to resolve a current case like 2020. So that is my point here. So please, let us get serious with it, and then we believe that things will do well for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Osei, for sharing your thoughts there. Let me come to Mr. Asante. Your quick thoughts, summary thoughts on the matters that I raised.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Asante. Please go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So, Doc, I was not in any way trying to contradict your data or your study. I rather, complimented you for the study. What I said is that because it's historical data, That used to be the case, between 2008 and 2013, as you perfectly put it, and that is absolutely right. What pertains today in 2022 is that we have more foreign-made weapons being used in the commission of crime. And that can be no fault of yours because your data only ends in 2013. And that is something we have also put up in the past between 2008 and 2013, that more locally manufactured weapons were used in the commission of crime. So you are right, and I'm not contradicting that. What I'm rather saying is that in 2022, the situation seems to have changed. And that is why we put in measures to deal with it, looking at the 2022 issues, which is that more foreign-made weapons are coming in and are being used in the commission of crime. So there is no contradiction, and I have no, in any way, attempted to downplay your data. If anything at all, I rather appreciate what you have done. And for us, it helps our work. And so kudos to you and your team. The final point, what do? We need a proper regulatory regime, and we need to review the laws that we use in dealing with these matters. We need to let people know that acquiring a weapon comes with a bigger responsibility. And so if you acquire a weapon, you have a responsibility to make sure that it is kept safely, and then you abide by the conditions that go with the acquisition of weapons. We also want to sound a warning that anyone intending to bring in weapons illegally would have us and the security agencies to contend with. And so there is no giving up on this matter, and that, every effort is being made to deal with people who think that, they can proliferate and cause instability in the country.
Thank you, Mr. Asante. Let me take the final words of Adib Sani, and it's a wrap. Adib, over to you.
Okay. All right. So I know Mr. Johnson and his team are working assiduously, but it's difficult. And things are really hard for them under the scheme of things. It's tantamount to going to a gunfight with a knife, even though they are giving of their best. But no serious country would make a small arms commission an advisory body instead of a regulator. So it is very challenging for them. That is why it's important that we make the Small Arms Commission a regulator. What in essence it also means is we don't have an arms regulator in Ghana. And that is scandalous. I mean, to say the least. We need to make the Small Arms Commission a regulator instead of an advisory body, because things are changing, times are changing. These days, people are able to print guns in their rooms. Just print the outer body, print the hammer, print the trigger, go to the market, get a spring, get the hammer to hit the primer, and you have a gun. Now, you are able to change, a semi-automatic Glock 19 into a full automatic gun. How do we deal with this? Is it illegal to bring in tasers? We don't have any regulatory framework on that. That is why we need to make the Small Arms Commission a regulator. And talking about Nigerian jailbreak, it is not the first time, and I know it will not be the last time. So our security apparatus should be ready and willing to put in place strategies so we are able to deal with somebody else's inefficiencies. Ghana is their favorite destination. Probably we are English speaking, we are prosperous, we have a large Nigerian community in Ghana. So we need to go beyond just issuing of statements on social media or electronically and go out there to the border towns, where these people come and are looking for accommodation, and landlords don't care where they are coming from. No questions are asked. All they want is the money. We need to sensitize. And they wouldn't be able to do it alone. There's a need for state CSO collaboration. So together, we can get as many Ghanaians as possible educated on what to do.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts on this all-important conversation. You just heard Adib Sani, Executive Council Member, Coalition of NGOs Against Arms Proliferation. We also heard from Dr. Paul Poku Sampene Osei, who led that team with that research piece. He is a forensic pathologist, histoforensic pathologist at the Komfo Anokye Teaching Hospital, senior lecturer as well with the pathology department at the KNUST. We also had a crucial stakeholder, Johnson Asante, programs manager for the Small Arms Commission. All of them joined this conversation. Coming up next on the show, we're exploring the MPP's National Delegates Conference, which comes up on Saturday. We'll be looking at the campaign processes so far, the conduct of aspirants, and what we can share with you as far as the 50 candidates that are vying for different slots across the platforms or the different positions available. We'll be bringing you the scoop on that. But also this one that is of interest. Don't you go away. Don't you forget that we have that as well. The issue of some of our students, over 200 of them stranded in Morocco in terms of not getting their stipends. All of that still to come on the AM show. More reason for you to stay. We'll be right back.
Good morning to you once again. This is the AM show, and I'm Bernice Abubedu-Lansa. It's time now to talk about some labor issues. As you may be aware, teachers are on strike, and some workers have threatened to join them. John Sampa is Deputy General Secretary of the Public Services Workers Union, and he joins us via phone. Good morning for your time once again. Mr. Sampa, has anything changed since we spoke to you in the morning yesterday?
Good morning, and good morning to our listeners. Nothing has changed. Of course, since we spoke, the government invited for this afternoon, and so we will go to the meeting, and after the meeting, way forward, but nothing has changed.
You are threatening a strike together with other workers who belong to the TUC on the 19th of July. What will make you backtrack, or what will make you say, okay, what deal can you accept?
When our demand is actually met, in other words, if the government use or if the president order for the payment of 20% COLA to all the categories of workers that we have demanded, we strongly believe that we should end the strike.
Mr. Sampa, I do believe that you appreciate the times that we're in. Clearly, we're going to the IMF for support. The general economic situation is nothing to write home about. Are you willing to accept a deal from government, probably a reduction in the percentage of what you're demanding, the 20%?
Well, currently, that is the demand of organized labor, and it's not one person that is able to change this demand unless we meet as organized labor group and then a decision is taken. But for now, what I can say is that the demand of the workers is 20%. When you look at the increases of prices, when you look at inflation, even the 20%, it will not commensurate to what we have lost. But we are thinking that at least when we get 20%, we can manage until the end of this year, where a new salary will have been announced. So we are hoping that we should get a 20%. But if there will be any change, if there will be any consideration, it depends on a number of metrics, and it depends on what other alternatives and solutions that the government team will bring on board. And I'm optimistic that where we have gotten now, we don't want to mess ourselves up as a country. And when we meet, government should be sincere. Government should be it should compose a strong team with alternative that can also commit government that when they make any pledge or they make any consideration, they will be able to honor it. Once we are confident about our discussions, I believe that Labour is not looking forward to bring the whole country down. but we are looking only for our fair share of the national cake.
So on the front page of the Finder newspaper, we see that teachers are meeting government again today. You've also mentioned that you're meeting government today. Are you all having the meeting together, or government is meeting the different worker groups?
No, the request for COLA was actually made by organized labor, all of us, and it was communicated by the Secretary General during the May Day, which letters have also been written, and individual unions, including teacher unions, have also made the same demand. So my understanding is that the fair wages that is responsible for negotiating salary, together with the Employment Ministry, Ministry of Finance, and all the stakeholders, they have called for this meeting, and they are inviting organized labor groups. So it's not only teachers that they are meeting, but they are meeting all of us.
At the same time? They're meeting all of you at the same time? Is it a sitting that includes all of you?
They are asking us to come with 2 representatives each from the unions, together with TUC and all the other organized labor groups, and they have the list over there. I think their letter is also in the media, inviting us for the meeting, and the list of the people that are supposed to attend. So I can confirm that the Public Services Workers Union, TUC Ghana, including TUC itself, will be represented adequately at the meeting, and we look forward that government will come with solutions and say that, look, I will consider your 20%, these are the timelines, and then we can actually take a consideration of our
The National Labour Commission gave, with regards to the teachers, speaking about the teachers' concerns specifically, gave the Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education Service, and the Minister of Employment some 7 days to negotiate and get back to it. We have about 2 days to go for that ultimatum to be reached. Your strike is for the 19th, which is also a few days away from today. We're expecting the mid-year budget review tomorrow. How soon do you expect your negotiations to happen? And what is your expectation ahead of that particular mid-year budget review?
Thank you very much. If we want to avert this massive call for strike by the Public Services Workers Union, and we are not talking about just one institution, 65 critical national institutions. If we want to avert this, obviously we have to use today's meeting. We are meeting the teachers that have already started the strike and support them, but we also have to go through certain structures of our union before we could declare strike, and that is what we did last week Friday, and now the notice has been given. So government is meeting all of us because all of us are making the same 20% COLA demand. So they have to put all of them together and then address it, so that when we are taking a decision that we are calling off or the issue has been resolved, it has been resolved because everybody is satisfied. If you resolve for only teachers and you don't resolve for the others will also go on strike. Now, if government, because sometimes you cannot really trust government has been agreeing with workers on a number of things, but they don't honor it. So we wouldn't also want to be deceived. So we have given our notice, making sure that we also satisfy the law, so that should the government come and only come with plea without any tangible solution, we will have satisfied the law and also go on strike the same way that we have communicated.
Mr. Sampa, you've told us that 20% is what you're demanding, and we are not sure if there will be any reduction if government proposes it. But besides the 20% of your salary you're requesting for as cost of living allowance, are you willing to accept a deal that says we will pay you, but not now? Government is not in a position to pay you now. Are you willing to accept a promise of future payment?
That is what I'm saying, that, well, I am not able to take this decision because the entire organized labor will have to take this decision. Taking the decision, we have to take into consideration the promises of government to other public sector institutions in the past and how they have honored it. And government has not really kept to a number of promises. And we have to assess the situation very well, whether we have to accept it or not, whether we have to go into an MOU. Has government been able to respect all its MOU? I mean, government agree with UTAC, it will not obey it for over 3 years. Labour Commission will order government to take care of it. The government will not do it. So we have to look at all these things and have to find out whether we have to use any other means. But I strongly believe that we should enter into this negotiation with clear mind. We should enter into this negotiation in good faith, which the law requires of us, and we are committed to doing that. I strongly believe that if government comes in sincerity and there are tangible solutions with that deadlines, as reasonable people, we should put our thoughts together as organized labor. And I believe this challenge is not greater than us. We should be able to resolve government and labor together.
In having this discussion since the teachers went on strike, we know that TUC made this demand on May Day, and the calls for COLA preceded government's decision to go to the IMF. But even as government has decided to go to the IMF, doesn't that give a hint to organized labor that government is in distress and that probably these demands could have, you could have held on to the demands until things probably return to a certain level of normalcy?
Not at all. Not at all. If the country is in crisis and we really want to go to IMF, there are a number of things that we have to do. And the workers will not agree, always sacrificing our interest. Nevertheless, the people that manage the economy, they have never sacrificed their own interest.
There's been a 30% cut in salaries.
30% cut of what? 30% cut of something that was increased about 54% or more. 30% cut of 40,000 or 50,000 or 60,000. Compare that one to the teacher that have worked for over 26 years who take not up to 3,000 Ghana cedis. 30% cut of what? 30% cut of the person who is already accommodated, house, paid utilities, everything. 30% cut of what? When they speak that way, they actually infuriate us the more. The point is that if we are in crisis, there are a number of things that we can do. And pay cut alone is not sufficient. We have to sit down and restructure our priorities. There are things that government is committed and in hurry to do, as if the world is about coming to an end. Why can't we wait and also consider the person that should go and collect your taxes, the person that should work on government machinery at the ministries, the person that is teaching the students? Why wouldn't government also consider to take care of that person and put on hold on few other things or restructure certain government policies?
So in clear terms,
why are we always on employee salary?
Mr. Sampa,
people that receive about 1,500, 1,200, 1,800.
Let's speak in practical terms. What are those projects or policies that you think government is in a hurry to do that you should hold on with for now?
Our interest as labor is conditions of service. The Constitution enjoins us to promote and protect the economic and social interests of our members. Obviously, in considering this, there are incidental issues that we talk about. But this morning, we don't really want to divert our attention. Politicians in this country, anytime we are talking about our interests, anytime we are talking about workers' salaries, then they try to politicize it. So there are a number of things that already there are other civil society organizations and there are other people that have commented on it. Immediately you suggest, people say that you are doing politics. We are not interested in politics because NDC, MPP, they don't put money in our pocket. It is only our work and the little that we are able to negotiate that is able to take care of us and our families. And therefore, we want to focus on ourselves. Government has intelligent people. They have the men. Where are the men? The men should put their heads together and restructure policies, and not we. We can actually offer when they sincerely come and say that, labor, do you also have other solutions to this? And we have always done this. TUC has always done this on the quiet, writing to them, even this IMF. The TUC has already issued a paper objecting to it and making solutions or recommendations as to things that should be done, things that should be restructured, things that should actually be restructured a little bit. But of course, once government decide that they will do something, whether you are dying or not, he decides to do. So I will not really talk about certain things that I think that the government should restructure. You are also in the media, and you know things that are going on in this country and things that government is busy doing. It is not for me to say those things this morning. We are talking about our conditions, and if things are hard, let us restructure some of the things and take care of the workers that generate the revenue that we see. And then we can talk about other things.
Grateful you could join us this morning. John Sampa is Deputy General Secretary of the Public Services Workers Union. As he mentioned earlier, they're entering a meeting with government, and we'll keep our eyes on that meeting and let you know what comes out of it. Meanwhile, they're threatening to go on strike on the 19th of July, join the teachers who are already on strike if their demands aren't met. Well, we're moving on to our next conversation, and you know, this is your election headquarters, and on Saturday, when NPP delegates go to the polls to elect their new national executives, we'll be there bringing you all the live coverage and action. But what more should we expect even as we build up to that big event? Do stay. I'll be back shortly. Well, we've been joined by Evans Nimako. He's Director of Elections at the NPP. Good morning to you, sir. Thanks for joining the program. How are things now as you prepare for that big event on Saturday?
Good morning. I hope you are doing well.
Yes, I am. Thanks for asking.
Thank you for coming through.
I'm asking, how far are you with the preparations for the event on Saturday?
Oh, wow. Thank you. Let's say good morning to your listeners. For now, the new patriotic party is set to conduct a very successful national annual delegate conference, which will also elect our national officers. This will cap the party's internal arrangement of electing officers to man the affairs of the party for the next 4 years ahead of us. Almost 4 years ago in Koporidua, the party elected the current executives whose tenure has come to an end. And so we are looking to organizing same national annual delegate conference convened by the national chairman, Honorable Freddie Blaine. The party is bringing together all national council members, all foundation members, all constituency executives across the 275, all regional executives who are delegates to the conference, our members of parliament, 137 of them, our MMDCs, municipal metropolitan district chief executives, 261 of them. We are also bringing external branch members of the party, 27 branches. They are all bringing 12 delegates each. So the party on Saturday will be bringing together delegates numbering almost 6,500 to go through the annual rituals of assessing the party's performance over the years, looking at the party's financial status, and then also go into the conduct of the elections. And per the Political Party Act, elections of parties from the constituency, regional and national level are supposed to be supervised and conducted by the Electoral Commission. The party has done the discussion with the Electoral Commission, and this will be done as such. We've also been in touch for the Ghana Police Service, looking at the numbers we are bringing together. A call for security arrangement to be made. And that has been done. And so we are looking forward to organize a very successful annual delegate conference. And when we've elected our national officers, they will steer the affairs of the party for the next years ahead of us. And also to come out with an arrangement that will keep the party in government come December 7, 2024.
Senator Mako, so on Thursday, July 7, we saw some guidelines and rules that were released by the party. And key amongst them has to do with the immediate removal of billboards and other paraphernalia which were scattered across cities in this country. You sent out a task force to ensure that the contestants comply with this directive. Has that been done? Have you fully ensured that this particular rule has been complied with?
Well, the party elections committee chaired by Mr. Peter McNeno and the National Planning Committee chaired by Mr. Fisher Bankoyeboa met with the candidate, and the discussions were agreed upon. In fact, at the party's National Council meeting, the party's National Council is the highest decision-making body apart from the National Conference, gave out the rules that in organizing election of such nature, the law allows that it must be done in semblance with the elections conducted at national level. And so it is the reason why the party is coming out with these rules and regulations. And I'm happy that the candidates are complying, and the task force are also working assiduously to ensure that the directives given are complied. And so I'll say that for now, we are happy with the conduct of the candidates. We are also looking forward that they will hold on to the rules of engagement. They will comply as such. Delegates will do same. Organizers of conference will ensure that all rules are applied accordingly. And so, yes, we are ensuring that we conduct a very seamless national annual delegate conference. Part of the elections will be conducted in line with the elections that would have been conducted generally by the Electoral Commission. And so we are ensuring that as you directed and directed by the National Council, it is implemented to the letter and respected as well.
In fact, the removal of billboards and other advertising in public places is the first point. It's a 9-point statement that we've seen. And the third one I will mention is no mobilization of supporters of candidates to the conference, and 4, no display of paraphernalia of candidates within the venue and its environs. On the issue of no mobilization of supporters, how are you going to ensure that this is complied with? Considering what happened during your regional delegates conference, we heard of some people going, openly saying that they had paid some delegates or they had spent huge amounts of monies trying to either retain their positions or win the positions they were vying for. On the particular point 3, how are you going to ensure that that doesn't happen? People do not bus their supporters to the venue.
Well, the elections committee and the planning committee has had a lot of participatory consultation with and discussion of candidates. As you said, supporters will be mobilized, definitely by candidates. And for the story you gave, those were the elections at the regional level. We are doing national annual delegate conference, and it is being organized by a committee put together by the National Council with the powers to ensure that rules are complied.
So how are they going to ensure that? That's what I'm asking.
So I mentioned to you that we've had discussions with the candidates, we've had discussions with the Ghana Police Services, and we know that as has been given by the National Party, National Council, our candidates will comply.
So, Mr. Nimaku, if I get you, you're just relying on compliance by the candidates, but there is no real measure to ensure that that doesn't happen.
The discussions that have gone on gives me enough assurance that these directives will be complied with by all stakeholders. And I'm saying that when you are talking of supporters who will be mobilized to conference grounds, it will be mobilized by candidates. And candidates have agreed and have accepted that they will comply with the directives of the National Council. And two, I mentioned to you that we are bringing together huge numbers and the police is hugely involved. And we are also ensuring that the platform is stated fairly for all aspirants. And so at the point where there has been agreement, where the agreement is to the sense of compliance, I beg to differ whether anybody wants to do anything and so on.
So like I said, you're just trusting the words of the candidates that they will comply with the directive. Let's move on to the example I cited for the regional elections. Just help us understand if anything has been done in that regard, any decision, has any investigation started, because it was scattered all over news portals. And I can give you some of the headlines. Ghana Web, for example, Wuntumi spent over 1 trillion cedis to win the regional election, aid alleges. My Joy Online, NPP regional executive elections, all candidates in Ashanti paid delegates. And this is according to a pollster at the Kumasi Technical University. Has any action been initiated as a result of these actions that the party considers improper action to pay delegates?
Well, there's a law on elections, and an issue of cheating is considered. And so our discussions with candidates, this issue has come up. But I am not going to discuss issues of allegations. I think the special prosecutor has been interested in some of these things. And whoever has enough evidence has the right to...
So the party has not kickstarted any internal processes to verify these claims?
Madam, we cannot go goose chasing. I'm saying that at the end of every internal elections in our party, in the New Patriotic Party, reviews are done. Elections committee was put together to conduct elections. Reports will be submitted. We are conducting elections at the national level. When we are done and we've gone through the process and there has been enough compliance, I wouldn't want to waste other resources to go chasing issues that I'll have difficulty getting evidence. Unless you tell me that there's Mr. A who says he has evidence of Madam B giving out or inducing people to vote in a certain direction. I mean, that could be a discussion for another time. In our preparation towards our national conference, which will also elect our national officers, we've had extensive discussions with candidates. We've involved the police, we've involved the electoral commission, and we are going to ensure that the rules of engagement, the rules for conducting of elections of this nature are applied to the latter.
So on 11th of June, the General Secretary of your party announced that vote buying was an issue and that it was going to be investigated. And that's why I was asking if there have been any processes initiated after he made that statement, and if investigations have happened, how far advanced are they?
Thank you, Madam, but I'm not aware of such investigation.
Right. So tell us, on the big day, which is Saturday, what will the nature of the elections be? We know that there's you're following a certain electoral college system. How will the day pan out? What is the program lineup?
Okay, so a detailed program on event by event, itemized on conference day program, will be discussed by the Director of Communication.
Okay.
But just to let you know, the party, in terms of the election, has created 20 voting centers discussion with the Electoral Commission for the main 5 positions, i.e., the National Chairperson position, the Vice Chairperson position, the General Secretary position, National Treasurer position, and National Organizer position. These are the main 5 positions. The others are 3 wings: the Youth Organizer, Women's Organizer, and NASA. So the main 5 positions, we have delegate size of 6,140. And these are divided into 20 voting centers. And so, for instance, Ashanti region, that has delegate number of 816 will have 3 voting centers. Ahafo and Bono regions will have 1 voting center because they have voter population of 340. Bono East and Northeast will be voting at the same voting center with delegate number 323. Central region will have 1 voting center. Eastern region will have 2 voting centers. Greater Accra will have 2 voting centers. Northern region will vote at its own voting center, same as Western region. Western North and Oti has a total number of 340 delegates. They will vote at 1 voting center. Upper West and Savannah will also vote at 1 voting center.
Sorry, when you say
Upper
1
East,
voting center, do you mean centers at the venue or in the particular regions?
Centers at the venue.
Okay.
So that in the spirit of ensuring that the elections is conducted with a bit of speed, with smoothness, with efficiency and accuracy and all that, we don't want delegates or voters to be stuck to polling stations being a queue. So the numbers have been reduced minimally to ensure that they are able to vote in good time. Counting, post-voting arrangement will be done in good time. Declaration will also be done in good time as well.
Would this take the nature of the national elections? Will they have to show a card? Will they have to be cross-checked in a certain register or verified with a biometric system before they go to cast their vote?
Delegates are defined and all will be checked as such. Register has been provided. Candidates have been given copies of the register. Electoral Commission who will conduct the elections has been given the register to go through and check. Members or delegates will be checked via their Ghana card, voter ID, as well as the party ID card issued to them. And so these are levels at which delegates will be checked and screened before they go into the voting arena.
Thank you for your time here, Mr. Numako. We'll stay in touch with you, even as we look forward to Saturday's event. Evans Numako is Director of Elections at the New Patriotic Party. You may be aware that this weekend, on Saturday to be precise, the governing party will be organizing its National Delegates Conference, Annual Delegates Conference. And this is a big one because it plays into the party's plan to break the 8 come elections 2024. We will keep our eyes on that particular election. This is your election headquarters. Stay with us for updates on everything related to the NPP's Annual Delegates Conference. The Ghana Grid Company, GridCo, is this morning leading a task force to demolish illegal structures sited under its high-tension lines. This is part of efforts to reduce the growing human activity around its poles. Hundreds of squatters are rushing to salvage their belongings. Let's take you live now to Bawaleshi, East Legon, for updates on the situation. My colleague Manuel Cranting is there for us. Hello, Manuel. First off, were these squatters notified of this demolition exercise?
What could be salvaged? Well, this bulldozer over here has one task, and that is to level the entire area so that all the shacks, and I've counted close to 100 shacks that were already standing here by the time we got here. Most of them currently are on the ground because under the instruction of a task force from the Ghana Grid Company, they are all being torn down. The reason we're told is that there are high tension lines of GridCo that are stationed just around this area in a perpendicular succession close to 500 meters all from here. And so what we're seeing is an attempt to actually break all of the structures here and then get them leveled. we're told that this is not a safe enclave for residents. And so, as you can see currently in your shot, there are some of the people who own these shacks now trying to salvage what they can before it gets to their turn for the bulldozer to tear down their properties. In fact, just a couple of minutes ago when we got here, we saw quite a number of them wailing and attempting to, persuade the task force to just allow them space to continue packing their stuff out. But we've seen also that the task force has not been budging. What we have seen is most of the structures are being broken, and those who are swift enough are able to salvage their stuff. For instance, this is a fridge that we've just seen over here with some also bags of water in here. We'll just try and speak to a few of them and then get a sense of exactly what is happening. My boss, what's your name, baby? What's your name, baby? Now, and say now, kiosk, baby, CC,
I say, Abasa say high tension, per kiosk, per container, but who bought into the air, how I drink. Until Mama several times warning. But I say, as soon as I'm
warning.
Mama warning.
Then I'm going to fear.
Say, Nipa. I never knew soon yes to buy.
So this gentleman tells me that he is aware that there have been warnings, several warnings that have been issued for them to move away from this area, but a lot of them are not able to move because, as they tell us, really there are not so many options for them. And this particular area, just before the demolition exercise began, was, if you like, a makeshift mechanic workshop. You are seeing quite a number of the vehicles parked here, indicating what they were used for. My boss, what's your name? What's your first saying? What the hope?
Yeah.
Hope o nyama wa hanuana.
Me shop
shop shop bank.
Provision shop.
Provision shop when for side.
Watch here.
Say we dey near nyambu.
There be I say my sister me nyama free mu. But yem mom fan musankai.
Wo chen say e be dru chen na o mebu.
There be me fa.
Wo tam efi on.
Me tam efi wo kra.
Yeah. Adentin na wo dey provision shop e be si hon.
Ho no mo no I say ye dos wa ha yi enti ho na me so me di dra me nya kakra credit.
But almost say high tension as no wires, you say wires be brave and nam ha se ba kotina nyame anye adoma na the assembly ba.
Medim sa but I say aha no ye na ha me say me na ha adwuma keke na me be ye wa ha bi pon na me kofi. Yeah.
Wo be ye adwuma wa ha?
Adwuma wa ha me pon na me kofi.
But wo so omoda ha. So this gentleman tells me that he owns a provision shop just around here, doesn't sleep here. But he's already emptied his provision shop and is attempting to move the shop from the area that it is. But this gentleman tells us that he has no other option. He said you don't have any other option.
Yeah, because Chairman Nema be a higher pa a higher na business center. You need baby ako. Ye juma ye pon ye kofi. Enu na ma ye yiri mususu aja. Omudi omusan eko omanu se si aye omububu hai ye den astanu man kasa emu aye din amaye ye nhusu afemu asan ba bebubu ha chama ye ne den ye tu afri ha ko ye kroma anansi den na ye omun kan kire ye na ye hu se ye nya Ghana fo so a omun kan kire na ya so nti o
but se na ye nim no untumi sorry na asase bia isi obia na wo de oniama
chama ye nyina ye nim sa ha ye high tension oman pa adwuma bia amfa maye enti aha ya na yesusu aja ye kakra wa yesu ye di ye nim sa ha a dangerous place ba ye ni baby akonti na yesusu a ye wa ha
but on him say ha a dangerous place no say omo bubu no omo yi mu fi ha it's for your own good no
ye nim sa de but at least ya na bibi mu say na ha ye woti ase do mu be pam ye de but asitina ye won sesi an amanu ma ye din uti ase na se sia mo asa sori e pam ya ye ko hifa ye ko ye kroma na omo kan kire ye na ye hu.
And so he tells me that he has no other option. What he says is that this area is their business center, and essentially this is where they come to ply their trade. So now that their, shops and structures are being demolished, they have very little option. And he's asking the question if government, and by extension the Ghana Grid Company, wants them to go back to their hometown. That's the sentiment that he's just been expressing here. Just across this particular area, I see a bit of emotions, flaring up, just as we're seeing some of the shops, getting turned over and some of them, being demolished. And so we'll just try and speak to them just briefly. And we can also confirm to you that there's heavy security presence here, just to, of course, guide the process and then allow the process to go on smoothly. Madam, na onyama wa hanu. Me nyina se me nua bema. Me ma no kura se we be school abetere fie. Me nyama nyina se everything. And then the man moye ya dabonten. Mass TV for na mo hwe ya wie ya America so ya mobo. Obia ya mobo e ma Yesu. Monka Greek for monka sa mo pa wa chama ni yesagu yeti. Yesu me nua no bebre. Enya me nko a. Omo yina mo huntia because high tension. Na so me no be ba ya nko school yi. E be de ne ya adwuma ja ya nya bi ahwe ma. Ahaya ne ya lala ne nya bi aye den adi. Ya nko school. Eti ya lala ya soso ya pka ya ne nya bi adi. Enu ti ne wa yi. Oniama ni na niama be na she. Ya drink provisions and niama me kwa choba nkwa ma ya nyina hwehwe ni nyina agu. Bisi aye mobo. Some bomb on kai answer no buy. Debia wa babanka we di wan amoyen kai. Ahimachi ya na wodi gidigidi bae. Ahimachi ya we di wan amoyen kai say mumpaja mo niam na ja ya sesa ye niam. Wan anka bibia ankyere ye. Enti ye no no. Se anu mo be kon. Ye di ba bia ko. Ahaya na yegu. Ya haya na ya yegu. Je ti de sraban. So obenya ba bi kra ma ye be ko she dwade ya. Ne ye hu de be ye. She's telling me that she also had a shop here and operated a chop bar. That's, of course, an eatery. And she says, and of course, there are, bowls, there are cabs, and so on and so forth. That is, just give an indication of the work that she was doing here. There are bottles of soft drink, carbonated drinks also just down there also. And she's been telling us that this is where she sells to the mechanics and the other folks who actually also, come here. At this time, even though there have been previous notices served to them, this particular action, which is being carried out this morning, was without a notice to them. And so they don't have anywhere to go. She's asking that government, for instance, helps them to find alternative spaces to set up their livelihood. So this is what is happening. Remnants of debris from the shacks and also the structures that have been torn down right here at Baoleshi. And this is just close to the East Legon American House area. And we're told that just in succession of these high tension poles that have been erected all the way, this exercise is being carried out all the way up until the Baoleshi School Park. And that's what's currently happening here. For now, a lot of people just standing by, idling and watching as their properties and their belongings are torn down to the ground with very little options available to them. It waits to be seen what the impact really of this will be after the bulldozer has left the site. And so just by the second and just by the minute, I see the numbers swelling up here. More and more people are arriving to attempt to salvage their goods also. Boss, you're helping them to carry their wares here.
Yes, please. I'm here to help my brother to carry his work.
You're here to help your brother?
Yeah.
But are you aware that they are not supposed to, put up these structures here?
No, I'm not aware. Yeah, I'm just a stranger here, so I'm not aware. I'm not working here, so I'm not aware. Yeah.
So when your brother moves his stuff from here, where is he taking it to?
Actually, we are not get place yet, but we'll be moving. Yeah, sure.
And so at this point, that's a lot of the concern of a lot of the people who are affected by this particular exercise. We've been attempting to get a bit of a response from the Ghana Grid Company. We're told that they're not making a statement just yet, and they will be addressing us. And we're bringing you that particular address when it actually happens. For now, it is a lot of the people counting their losses, even as the demolition exercise continues in earnest. Back to you, Bernice.
Great, Manuel Kranting, the reporting for us from Bawaleshi, East Legon. He will stay there and bring us updates. Hopefully, the Ghana Grid Company will make a statement on this. Hello, Ghana. Happy moment is here. The Storm World Cup Qatar 2022 with Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water from Casapreco Company Limited. Simply buy your favorite Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water and text the 4-digit unique number on the neck of the bottle to short code *780# option 2, *780# option 2, and follow the prompt on all networks for free. Be one of the lucky winners to this year's World Cup in the monthly draw. You can also win TVs, fridges, microwave ovens, mobile phones, home theaters, free drinks and more instantly. Don't waste time. Grab a bottle of Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks and Awake Drinking Water and let's storm Qatar this World Cup. This promotion is on the NLA Caritas platform and this advert is FDA approved. Terms and conditions apply. A person who is not required to register for VAT may voluntarily apply to be registered. A voluntary applicant shall be registered as a taxable person where the Commissioner General is satisfied that the person has a fixed place of abode or business or reasonably believes that the person keeps proper accounting records related to any business activity carried on by that person, submits regular and reliable tax returns, or reasonably believes that the person is a fit and proper person to be registered. Well, this is the AM show. When we come back, we'll be taking your comments on the big stories we've been discussing. Do stay. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. Benjamin is back with me in studio.
Here I am.
Yeah. Good to see you. And it's now time to hear what you have to say about the big issues we've been discussing. Benjamin has been talking proliferation of arms amidst the threats of terrorism. Earlier, we brought you that story about Ghana being put on high alert after a jailbreak in Nigeria. A series of them have happened this year. We've also been talking about the worker unions in Ghana going into a meeting with government over their cost of living allowance. What do you have to say about all these we've been discussing this morning? We'd like to hear you. The number to call 0302-211-691 extension 2030-211-691 extension 2. Benjamin.
Oh yeah, so quite a lot to digest this morning. I also, your conversation with Evans Nimako, Director of Research and Elections at the NPP, or with the NPP, gearing up towards the National Delegates Conference ahead of Saturday. It makes for interesting, and some of the questions you were posing to him about the confidence he has ahead of the elections and why he thinks policing and all of that is going to be enough. I was also, just following
because,
and wondering along with you.
If you look, candidates do all sorts of things to enter positions or
to fluster the opposition to...
So if you're just taking their word for it, that they're going to comply by the rules, I'm sorry. I mean, that's not enough. If you ask me based on my little observation of political activities over the years in this country. I mean, look at what happened with the regional conference in the Ashanti region, where people openly said that they had given money, and you're saying that's not enough evidence for investigation when the General Secretary had said on A1 radio in Bolgatanga that investigations were going to commence. I mean, some of these things you just want.
And the issue of billboards, though, that they've been told to pull down, that's another tricky bit.
Well, because it's taking the nature of the general elections, and so they were hoping that they could comply with all these guidelines. But, well, it's not about us, it's about you and what you have to say. So we have a first caller from Asin Fosu. Hello, Emmanuel. Good morning. Let's hear you, please.
Please, we want... all I want to say is that this time around, we are looking at our leaders, what they will do for us. I'm a teacher, and in fact, we are really suffering.
And when you say leaders, you mean the heads of your teacher union?
Okay. Sit on the meeting today.
Okay, so what do you expect from them?
All that we want to hear is our COLA will be paid for us. That's all.
All right.
Other than that, nothing more.
All right. Thank you very much for calling. Emmanuel from Asin Fosu. Our next caller is Mohammed from Kumasi. Hello, Mohammed. Let's hear you. Hello, Mohammed.
Hello. Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning. Please go ahead. Let's hear your contribution.
Yeah. Mr. Benjamin, how are you doing? Yeah. Can you hear me? Please?
Mohammed, please don't listen to me on the television set. There's going to be a delay. Listen over your phone and let's have a conversation from there. If you can, just mute your TV when you call. Hello, Mohammed. Well, it
appears we may have lost Mohammed. Let's bring in Roland from Agbozume. Roland, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right, please speak up a little. What's your take this morning, the discussions we've been having?
Yes, my concern is about the teacher union strike.
Are you a teacher?
A teacher myself.
Okay, all right.
Yes. In fact, when we talk of teaching, and teachers have to reform a human being, put a human being in a good shape, make that human being to become a useful person in society. And most of the times, I don't understand how Ghana look at the teaching profession. You see, we have to have a sound emotion, we have to have a good mind before we can be with the students and prepare them well. With all this hardship and everything, when you see a category of people, you look at how they are living their life, and look at how teachers are living their life in terms of financial, commitment and other things. It's very sad. So this time we are saying that our leaders should play that role. They should be firm on decisions.
Okay.
Show that when we are back to the classroom, we do what is expected of us as teachers.
So just to conclude the conversation, you're basically agreeing with the last caller that, look, it's COLA or nothing else.
That is it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Roland. Let's head to Fumbisi. Richard joins us from there. Hello, Richard. Good morning to you. Let's hear what you have to say.
Good morning. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Richard. Please go ahead with your submission.
Yeah, I'm a teacher as well.
Great.
And I'm a teacher. I just want you to look at it. Yeah. Hello.
Richard, please go ahead. We can hear you perfectly.
Yeah. So you look at workers, teachers and other workers. You know, you are posted, most of us, to the rural areas. You get there where you stay, no one cares. Sometimes you work for a year or 6 months without salary. No one cares whatever you eat. How you get to your workplace, no one cares. You get to the workplace, and what you use to work, no one cares. You know, we've just had a change of record. And this is 3 years since that change of occasion. No textbooks, no one cares. And the first part of it is that people in the offices, hello?
Please go ahead.
We can hear you, Richard. Please go ahead.
People in the offices, and they ask questions like, oh, that's what do you even teach? The first is, what have you asked them to teach? What did you give them to teach? People fail to understand that teachers are actually giving textbooks and classes by which they must go by. People let it look like, okay, so what you can just enter inside the classroom and decide that, okay, this is what I'm going to teach so that it can move the economy of the nation forward. No, we don't work like that.
All right, Richard. Thank you for calling.
You must comply with.
All right, Richard.
And these are our leaders. Hello.
Yes, we are grateful for your time.
So quite a bit of passion in Richard's. You can tell he's passionate about it.
Yes.
But we have to wrap, unfortunately, Richard. Let's move on to our next caller, Bernice.
Pakwesi is joining us from Kaswa. Pakwesi, good morning. Let's hear you. Hello, Pakwesi.
Is that Pakwesi we just lost?
Yeah, it looks like we lost him. And please, when you call, make your point brief, straight to the point, so we can engage other callers. And
it works better. It works better that way, so that whatever you want to say is articulated. So just make it very brief. And I don't know how many times, but let me just say this: when you call, don't listen to us on the TV. There will be feedback. So just listen on the phone, so you can. It will help you.
Yeah, just mute the television, and it's easier that way. But from the callers we had, I think about 4 of them are teachers. And
it's interesting, right? The teachers are calling in quite a lot this morning.
Yes, and they make some interesting points. One hits me strongly is about their leaders.
Yeah. The leaders will be in a tight fix now.
So they're actually counting on their leaders to push what they want and not to backtrack in their engagements with government. But we have David from Nampanduri. Hello, David. Let's hear you. Hello, David.
I believe David is there somewhere. Let's give it another try. David? Hello.
Well, too bad we lost him, and David would have been our last caller. Do we have a right? Okay, we have a last caller, Dr. Razak. Hello, good morning to you, sir. Let's hear what you have to say. Hello, Dr. Razak. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, Doc. Let's hear you, please. Good morning.
How are you?
We're doing well. Thanks for asking.
Hello. I'm speaking from Kumasi.
Let's hear you, Dr. Razak. Please don't listen on your television. Let's just have a conversation over the phone.
All right.
Please make your submission.
My problem is, all right. What? Okay. When you look at Ghana, we have a very big problem in terms of our economy. When you look at the current problem issue, balance of payment deficit, what do? You look as if Ghanaian economy, the managers of the economy are now putting money, investing money in unproductive ventures. So if you look at that, our export is lesser than what we import inside. So we will continue facing challenges if we don't back up to give back our economy.
All right, Doc.
By producing much to feed ourselves and then export some. Other than that, we will continue facing problems. All the strike actions we are facing today is we are not, our output is less than what
Doc.
we are expected.
Yeah, we thank you for...
So Ghanaians, we must be back up.
All right, all right.
So that our economy will boost up so that...
Right, so that Dr. Razak from Kumasi making his points there. Well, he says it's an import-export thing. We are such an import-driven economy and it's not helping us. We'll take our last caller, Zach from New Ibirim. Hello, Zach. Please make it straight to the point. Hello, Zach. Well, looks like we lost.
I think we'd have to end it on that front. And we'll have more opportunities to
definitely.
Yep. We have to make way for Joy News Desk, but before we go, a very special happy birthday to you, Nana Ama Amo of SG Fanofa branch, Kukum Limli. Today is the day the Lord has added to your life. As you celebrate the day, may life give you every good thing, and may the hand of the Lord keep you safe and out of harm's way. May today usher you into new levels of greatness and joy unspeakable. Enjoy your day. Cheers, and it's from Parkwesi Shandorf and the whole crew here. On that note, Bernice.
Well, thank you once again for joining us. We really appreciate your audience every morning. God willing, tomorrow at 6 a.m. we are back with what matters to you. But from Benjamin and myself for now,
let's end with some swag.
Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.